Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Crew First Culture podcast. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today, as always. And you tuned in on a very good day today. I've got Ric Jorge with me, and we're going to have a great conversation. There's no doubt in my mind. So, without going any further, how are you doing, Ric?
Doing well, man. I went to woke up this morning, felt real good. You get to be my age, things start to hurt for no reason. Went to the gym, tortured my legs, came home, had a nice breakfast and a brunch with my wife, and I'm here with you and podcast land too. God is good, man.
All right, awesome. So, everybody just listening here, I'm looking at Ric, and he's in a freaking tank top, and it's
That's a
very
South Florida dress, man.
it's irritating to me because I'm freezing to death. It's 30 something degrees here in Oklahoma, and so I'm very jealous. But I definitely that's life goals right there. Be sitting around in January in a tank top outside for sure.
It was in the 40s just a couple of days ago.
Hey, I bet that's probably a like sub-zero for you guys.
It is. We got a saying in Florida: if you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes. It's going to change.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same here. I'm sure. Well, Ric, I'm truly, like we talked about this a little bit before we push record. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and at the same time, I don't know what to expect out of this because this might bring up some stuff from me personally that I've not even really talked about, but that's a good thing. And like we talked about earlier, I've really felt a push here lately to dig into some people's stories. You know, there are so many good stories out there, people that have, conquered addictions, conquered injuries, and just everything possible. Just great people doing great things. And with the world today, the negativity out there, these are the stories that I want to share more of. And so obviously hearing a few of the podcasts you've been on, you're one of the guys that needs to be, your story needs to be told. And so thank you very much for coming on, and just looking forward to it.
My pleasure, brother.
So before we get started, go ahead and just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. You can go as big or as little as you want to, and we're just going to go from there.
I was going to reverse engineer this, but let's start at the beginning.
You start wherever you want to, Ric.
I was born into a family of Cuban immigrants that had to flee for political asylum back in the 50s. My father was a physician, and he was on the hit list for Che Guevara during Castro's overthrow of the government in Cuba. As a result, I ended up being born in Cleveland, Ohio, which is the capital of Cuba now. And that's a joke. So I spent a little time up there, and we were traveling, grew up in a very good family, no sisters, all brothers, lots of cousins. You couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting, somebody in my family in South Florida or Tennessee area. We encountered a lot of different things throughout my life. Okay. But I always had a good family. They were all very loving. It was very good. But I was that kid. I was never satisfied. I was the black sheep. I was the one that was always a lot of problems, just things that happened that, I was the kid that drank, stole the volumes out of my mama's, drug cabinet, smoked weed, carried on with a bad crowd, and started small and gradually grew into this thing where I was involved in smuggling. And I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of, dealing drugs and running with a very violent crowd. I had a very good, prior to all of that, I was very active. I was real athletic. I played football. I ran track. I wrestled. I kickboxed, done jujitsu. I've done a lot of high level training with people. I've been very blessed. My whole life is riddled like that, but that led me into sobriety. I've been sober for, this is year number 34. It took me a little while to figure out that between the drugs and the alcohol, I kept, and I would break out in a rash. It was called handcuffs, and I always end up in jail. As a result of that type of violence, I also was pursued, by people that I had done wrong to or harmed. And there was a lot of that, it was back then. But the sobriety thing changed a lot of stuff. It had me focus on my virtues. So it never occurred to me that I always felt on the outside. I was never comfortable in my own skin. No matter what I did, man, I played football, I surf, paddleboard, dive, I ran track, I was on a wrestling team, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai. It didn't matter what it was. I never felt comfortable or a part of anything. And when I got sober, I realized that didn't have to do with how many team sports I joined. It had to do with the internal. I had no idea when somebody said that you look up, look in, and then look out. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about.
Yeah.
Which began my journey understanding and finding my God. And so that sounds kind of goofy, but that's how it started. My God is Jesus Christ, but some people have a different way of going about things. I don't judge that.
Yeah.
I was judged pretty hard on my own journey, but my journey brought me to where I am now, and I would not trade that in for nothing. The impact that had, most of the time I always thought, why do these things happen? And so these roadblocks, these tragedies, these instances were always something that I had to get through. I didn't realize that what was happening was I was being refined for later on in life for exactly what God had in mind for me. When I speak in conferences or lectures or stuff, and I start talking about God, I can see people get antsy and uncomfortable because some people got some issues around. I get it, man. I'm a recovering Catholic. I understand, and I just tell them, listen, it ain't like an STD. You ain't gonna get this just because you know me or come near me or touch me or something or listen. It's just part of the story, and it's actually a very big part of the story, and it plays out later on. But that opened the door to being a fireman. I've been wanting to be a fireman since I was a child, and when I got hired on the fire department, it was a dream come true, man, and then I progressed and promoted and started teaching, and that opened up all kinds of doors. And then in the process was a divorce. And that divorce was my segue into being diagnosed with PTSD. I didn't know. I just thought I was losing my mind. I couldn't sleep. The suicide ideations, my emotions, like at the drop of a hat, would go from joy to utter despair and crying. I couldn't focus on a task. My mind was always racing. I couldn't keep a mask on my face. Oh, it was terrible, man. That was the most emasculating thing that ever happened. Because then I start telling myself I sucked at this job. I was never good at it. I was a liar. I believed my own press, this and that, which was true early in life. And here it is again, playing through my head. And when I got diagnosed with PTSD, which was quite by accident, during the divorce, I had to then seek out men to try to help put me back together again. I wanted to finish my career. I wish I had another 10, 15 years, and I didn't, and I really loved the fire service that much. And it's been quite a love affair with the fire service. It's outlasted marriages, everything except my kids, it's one of the things that I have done the longest, second to sobriety and having children. And so when I started seeking these men out, which are military and sports psychologists, and they're famous, they're well known. Grossman and Gavin DeBecker and Andy Morgan, Andy Walsh, doctors and other sports psychologists that are predominant in the field of sports and professional sports and Olympic sports. And that was another clue that I had to look inside this finely tuned piece of machinery here, the 6 inches of real estate between my ears. I was having problems and I needed to work on that. It wasn't the physical side because I was training and I probably weighed about 209, 205, 209, and I was about 5% body fat. I was in really good shape, but the outsides didn't match the insides, and the insides were just a mess. And these men helped me through that, and I was able to overcome almost everything. And I came back to, and why I say almost everything is because the thought always comes in, and then you have to be aware and mindful that it's there, and then just talk it back and like, shut up, mouse, get back in a hole, and that kind of thing. But that allowed me to continue on with my career and do very, very well. And as a result of that, there were some things that happened, like this class and these interviews and things like that I didn't plan for. Tactical resiliency training, which is my company, we teach and consult, and it was never it's cool, but that was never the idea. That was never the goal. The goal was to just fix myself. And then other people started coming forward and saying, hey, I noticed that you did this, and because you're kind of open about talking about that, and I'm like, yeah, no worries. Let's come on over and we'll train. And that training turned into a bunch of people, and a bunch of people turned into a structured class. And so it was very interesting and completely unexpected. All happened from a divorce. Go figure, And then in retirement, a lot of things. You get a lot of gifts in retirement that you're not expecting, like shoulder surgery, cancer, all kinds of things. So the cancer was a big one because when I was diagnosed with cancer, it was colon cancer, and I used to tell people they were a pain in my ass all the time. Or I'll call them an asshole, and I ended up with colon cancer. I don't think that's any coincidence. I think that energy goes where it's directed. I think if you're not careful with how you expel your energy, you went for a rude awakening. I'm not saying that's why I got it, but regardless, when I was diagnosed with that, the first thing I thought was, all right, I'm talking to God. I'm like, all right, what do you want? Where do you want me to go with this? Where are we going? What are we doing? What's happening here? And it wasn't really, it's kind of an odd space, but you got to recall that when I got sober, I ran with a crowd that wasn't nice. I have 3-4 friends that were murdered over drug situations, been shot at, and enough said, you understand. So now when I get sober, I'm like, God, why are you cursing me like this? Because I can't drink or party or carry on like the rest of the world. But unbeknownst to me, it was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
And then I get hired in the fire service and I have these struggles, blessing in disguise, because I end up teaching. The divorce, blessing in disguise, it exposes me to resilience training. And now cancer, by this point, I already knew, okay, this is not one of those things, crap, another speed bump. No. This is a lesson. What is the lesson? I mentioned refinement earlier. And so all of us go through these struggles. All of us do. You've got your personal struggles that you went through and the things that you learned. And earlier we were talking how if you didn't share those things, you're not using that gift that you were given. You're not using it to help and benefit other people. And so with the cancer, a good friend of mine, Mark Weiss, just passed from pancreatic cancer, which is just a nasty, vicious cancer. And there's other people that have cancer. And I work in a treatment industry. So it's funny, I work in a rehab and it's for uniformed personnel. So we get cops, and we get all law enforcement, whether it's Treasury, FBI, whatever, military, fire, dispatch, EMS, and we see a lot of people with cancer and stuff. So I have the opportunity to speak to them from experience on that. I was also able to help support Mark through his death and what he was going through, which, always seems like you fall up short because you want to help more. But I think sometimes the best you can do is just be there for somebody that's struggling like that. And it's hard because you question your own mortality and stuff. But what that does is it opens your eyes to how you're living. So there's multiple directions. When I discovered, and we'll go back to the key word, when I discovered what my purpose was, and I thought my purpose was to be a fireman, but what that purpose is to help others, to be of service. And then when you investigate servant leadership, it's not that your purpose ends when you retire. It just changes direction.
Yeah.
And so mine has got multiple directions that it goes in. And anybody that's listening that's struggling with this, it's just a refinement process, man. I'm 62 years old, and it's taken me a long time to get here. And it's been a lot of heartache and a lot of pain and sadness and tragedy, but there's been a great deal of joy and happiness and blessings that far outnumber any of that bad stuff.
Yeah.
But understanding and having that perspective to be able to get through those things and what you're looking for is really important, because most people think their purpose ends with their job. That's your job. It's not your purpose. The underlying motivator beneath that is what your purpose is. What do you do? I help people. Well, how do you help them? I help them in a number of different ways. I help them with drug addiction, alcohol addiction. I help them recover from PTSD, to manage the emotional roller coaster of cancer and the physical and embodiment of what it's like to try to stay healthy while you're sick, and you get a lot of that, exposed to a lot of that in the fire service. And most guys get sideways. I did. So when I got my divorce and I got diagnosed with PTSD, it wasn't the divorce. It's just that we have circles, right? We have tribes. So I do an analogy of tribes, which is, so my primary tribe is my family, my wife, my children. And then my secondary tribe is my extended family, which is my cousins, my brothers, all the extended family. And then there's social, and that's all my friends in the different categories. Like I got buddies that I surf with, buddies I paddleboard with, buddies I go boating with, buddies I go hiking with, buddies I go hunting with. There's all kinds of guys, And then there's the work tribe, which is your company, your battalion, people you train with, your instructors that you know from around the country and stuff that you teach with. And then there's my church tribe, and the people that I go to Bible class with, and the people that I can trust to share intimately about my journey and finding my God. And there's so you get the concept, right?
Yeah.
What happens with PTSD is it creates this fear and this panic, this anxiety. It actually, you do feel like you're losing your mind. That's why you start thinking that suicide's a really good option, because you can't shut it off, and you start thinking, well, man, I'm just a drag on people. I gotta just, they would be better off without me. And it's just crazy. It's just crazy because we're somewhere we've never been before. For example, we'll see videos on YouTube or on a number of different channels and stuff, where you'll see firemen doing things and you go, what are they thinking? Well, what the hell were they thinking? Well, they had reached their capacity, right? So their training brought them to a ceiling. And so now what you do is, something tragic happens, but you know what happens? The rest of the fire service learns a solution because of that. And so the training goes on. And now this new training happens, and we have a new ceiling, a new understanding, a new level of development, resilience. And it never stops. It goes on through life in general. So when you think So when that happened with my PTSD, it wasn't the relationship, it was that the breakdown of my family had caused a fracture throughout everything else. Because one, I'm embarrassed, I'm not going to church, because it all started. It's the way that all of this came about. All of those little tribes just kapoom. I couldn't even go to my company. What am I going to tell my boss?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell my boss, by the way, I can't keep a mask on my face. I'm completely out of me. He would laugh at me because I was that guy that they depended on, or if he didn't laugh at me, he wouldn't know how to help me. I'm a relatively intelligent man, and I'm a quick study, and I've been blessed with being able to pick things up relatively fast. And there was nothing out there. There was nothing out there. I had to look and seek and develop and whatnot. And so it was very humbling, but it was the breakdown of all of those tribes that left me thinking the whole suicide thing, because I didn't have anybody that I could trust or talk to. And it was about something that not many people knew anything about. I thought the psychologist was full of shit because I'd never been to war, and that's the way I associated PTSD, which we know now is just that's a misnomer. That's important to understand, because what happened now is all of these things. I can't protect my family. I can't protect my kids. My kids are being used as weapons during the divorce. I've been displaced from my home. I got no friends to talk to about this. I'm isolating. I can't sleep. There's a big one. Can't sleep. That's a big problem right there for many of us. And so the emotional swings start to occur, and this is the buildup. And so it's all of this stuff that I had been through previous. The divorce was just the final straw, man. That was the last vehicle, and that's why I went through this refinement process of having to find my way out of that and struggling and trying to become whole again. And I always focused on the physical and the mental. What I left out was the emotional and the spiritual, and they're just as important as the first two. So I think that physically we focus on the fire service very, very well, right? For the most part. I mean, you're always going to get guys that are out of shape and stuff and whatnot. Come on, man. It comes with the territory. It's not okay. I'm just saying, it's also not okay to berate these people. So if you, well, what do we do with them? You say, well, that's real simple. You show me what your hiring and your promotional practices look like, and I'm going to show you what your department values.
Yeah.
It starts there. It starts at the hiring process, and then it continues on through your career. And people want to fight that all they want. Well, it's okay. We don't keep having the same problems we've always had. So the physical is important, and I trained for it. I mean, I had a big rock at the beach, and it was safe. I had it up in the sand dunes. I picked that thing up, walk out into water about shoulder deep, and I'd take a deep breath, and I would run underwater holding this rock. And then I'd drop it. I'd come up, take a breath, take a second breath, dive down, grab it, and run. And so what I'm doing is I'm just doing cardio in a different way. I'm trying to increase my VO2 max because I thought that's what my problem was. Now, I'm not thinking well, because you should never do something like that without a buddy. You should always have a buddy, because you get shallow water blackout and you're done, bro.
Yeah.
What happened to Ric Jorge? I don't know, but he washed up on the beach, and then you can hear the Cuban jokes from there, So because that's just how the fire service is, man. So the physical side got better, and the mental side I started focusing on, and that started getting better. And what I mean by that is when I learned about breathing techniques, which helps. Breathing helps a number of things. One, when you breathe through your nose, it helps you to increase the pressure within your lungs, and it allows you to greater expand your lungs than if you breathe through your mouth. Breathing through your mouth is designed for a sympathetic nervous system response, okay, or for severe exertion. All of us are going to breathe through our mouth. Our nose just not going to be able to cut it. But breathing through the nose is the key, because it affects cranial nerves in the head, which in turn affects the physiology, the body, and the thinking. And so, for example, some of them have to do with spatial navigation. What the hell does that mean? That's how we walk. We see shapes, colors, shades, and that's how we walk. Depth perception, your peripheral vision, the ability to be able to decipher things by looking at them. So that being said, when people are blacked out, you can understand why they would freak out or act unusual, because that's our primary sense, right?
Yeah.
And so then the other ones have to do with the other cranial nerves have to do with communication and the ability to be able to speak and to be able to formulate your vision, what you're hearing, seeing, and feeling into words, and articulate it in such a way that it's clear. And then it has the emotional aspect of it too, which is the ability to be able to stay calm. Well, when you breathe through your nose and you can expand your lungs to maximum capacity, the parasympathetic receptors at the base of the lungs are affected, which in turn give you that control and that calmness. And so there's more that's involved with nasal breathing. That's just some of the stuff. And so I now I'm starting to understand mentally some of the workings. Okay. But the emotional maturity that I had to deal with was very difficult, because I judge people, and most of my life was based out of fear, and I was always this little dude. I got beat up a lot, so I became a bully. I learned how to fight. I won a couple of fights, and then I didn't stop, and I just kept. I became the very thing that I hated.
Yep.
And so, learning about my emotions and how to deal with them, how to be able to express love to my children, to my wife, to my brothers, my sisters, my friends. I had to get past the embarrassment or the being uncomfortable doing that, thinking it's not manly. Because that shit was killing me, man.
Yeah.
That was killing me, And so when I started to learn about that, it opened the door to spiritual development. And spiritual development is probably where everything fell into place. And when I talk about spiritual development, I talk about finding my God, my journey to find my God. And listen, I don't care if you believe in God or not. You just believe that I believe in him. That's all that's important with regards to the story. Because I would never infringe on somebody else's ability to be miserable because they never found a God. I think that hole in my soul was placed there by God because he wanted me to get frustrated and exhausted trying to fill it with drugs, alcohol, women, violence, clothing, cars, trucks, money, all of that. And when none of that worked, I had one thing left, and that was to come to him. And that's the only way that hole fills, It's the only way I found, and countless others before me, better men than me, have said the exact same thing and gone through the exact same things. So it is what works for me. And all of that from a divorce. That's what I learned from a divorce. You can imagine, and the PTSD. And so it was one thing on building on top of the other, and now it's the cancer. And so, I have been going through a constant state of refinement, as have you, Jeremy. That the marriage, the children, the experiences, all of that stuff plays. And what's it play into? Because other men are going to come to you for help. And rather than say, come on, let's go to the bar and get hammered, and then what? We're going to have a couple drinks. We're going to get angry. Somebody going to look at us the wrong way. We're going to whoop the ever living shit out of them. And we're going to end up in jail. Well, what the hell did we accomplish? Now, don't get me wrong. Alcohol is not the culprit.
Yeah.
The personality is the culprit.
Yeah.
That's the culprit. Alcohol been around as long as prostitution, maybe longer. Okay. And I'm not saying either one of them is right or wrong. I'm just saying that's not my problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the segue.
Man, I'm just, this is a difficult place to be in, me sitting here as a host, because I honestly just want to listen and just be a part of the conversation. But the host side of me is like, man, I gotta focus on where to go and all this bull crap. And I'm like, so I'll say this.
Yes.
Two distinct, well, first off, like you mentioned, purpose That's what we're here to talk about today, purpose.
Good.
And like I said before we started, just like you said, if you're uncomfortable with the talking about God and talking about faith, I'm sorry, but you cannot talk about purpose without talking about faith and about God. You just can't do it.
Agreed.
But two distinct kind of storylines really kind of blare out at me with you. And the first one is, and this is how you describe yourself, but it's the story of how a common street thug has turned into basically one of the most endearing personalities of the American Fire Service. And that is to think
Bro, you trying to make me
how
cry?
I'm just I
That was
I
beautiful.
just
Thank you very much. That's quite a
well,
compliment.
and I don't I truly mean it, because I mean I just met you today. I've talked to you one time on the phone before this. This is the first time I've actually seen you and talked to you like this. So I don't personally know a lot about you from a person to person standpoint, but everything I have heard from everybody that has either met you, knows you personally, been in a class, that's how they describe you. You are just a personality that people love to be around, that you're just a loving, you love life, you love people, you love helping people. And I just think that is amazing to go from what you say was a common street thug, and I'll say it again because that's huge, to this person you are now. It's amazing to me. It is truly amazing. And I'll stop there because we can go back. But the second part of this, the second storyline that's amazing is, you know, I'll basically just describe it for you. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but when you went through the divorce, when you went through all of these struggles with your mask and just not being able to control your emotions and the PTSD and all that, that that was probably one of your biggest struggles in life, I would say. And now that biggest struggle has turned in to who you are. You are one of the most sought after people for that mental toughness, that mental resiliency. And it's just crazy to think that you took something that probably could be the end of most people. Like you say, that was close for you, but you took that and it led you on a path to meet people that are at the top of their game, top of their field, in many different areas. And like you said, it refined you and refined your story in a way that has now put you at the top of the game in this area. And those two stories are just crazy to me. And your life is full of stories, just the 20 minutes or whatever you set there
One
describing
giant
it.
story, bro.
But
Do you know the most interesting part of what you just described was for me? I became acutely aware. I have a man that I speak to regular. As my sponsor. I've been going to Alcoholics Anonymous for 34 years. I've been sober, and so working on 34. And this man used to always tell me, "The greatness is in humility. The greatness is in humility." Now he's been drilling that into my head for a long, long time. Do you know how humble you have to be to go to people and tell them that you have this problem and this and that and whatnot? And so now when people approach me, I put myself right in their shoes. I know exactly where they're feeling. Do you see
oh yeah,
that's
oh yeah,
where, that's the emotion part
yeah,
and the spiritual connection part. Because I know
yeah,
why he's refined me to be able to understand where these people are and what it takes to get there. One of the greatest compliments I ever got, a young man wanted to take our class. Well, now it's 2 years ago in Portland, and he couldn't do it because he was overweight. So he lost 80 pounds to take our class the following year. That's the greatest honor I've ever been bestowed on. A guy lost 80 pounds, and he did well in our class.
yeah.
He was a rock star, man. The guy got a motor on him, got a heart, but to see the joy on his face, but yeah, the the humility was the big part. Learning all those moving pieces and stuff, very important. But delivery is everything. If you don't, you could have the greatest product in the world. You don't deliver well, it ain't gonna move well. And the genuineness of people when they show up in our career tracks like this, it's important.
Yeah.
And many of these people they don't want to come up and tell you, hey man, I can't keep my mask on. I can't breathe through it. Oh yeah, that tube, that entanglement drill right there, I've been ducking that for 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years been ducking this, got through it successfully. Then he went through it again. Then he did it like 3 or 4 more times during the day just because couldn't believe he could do it, and how comfortable he was doing it. And it's perspective on everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So now I love hearing you say that. The word humility is almost like, I'm trying to think of a way to say it to give it the true weight. It's really, really becoming more and more evident to me. Basically, day to day, you're looking at the process right now of how important humility is, how huge humility is, and so we will definitely talk about that more. I think there's something to be said about your story and kind of what I just said earlier about the amazing chain of events and all that. But I think at the base of it, what needs to be said is that there was a victor mindset there. If you had a mindset of if you had a victim mindset, you would have never made it through any of that stuff. It's got to be a foundation of that victor mindset of, I don't care what it is, I'm going to make it through. I don't care what it is, I'm here for something better. I will make this good. And you described it yourself, and it's I love it. Just cancer. You described cancer as a gift. There is something there that is going to come out of that that's good, and that. And that, I have that myself. I know that as crappy as things are, as bad as things seem right now, sooner or later there's going to be something good come from it. You just got to fight. You just got to fight through it and get to that good. And so that's kind of what I wanted to bring out of those stories is, if you don't have that victor mindset, if you play that victim role, man, you're not gonna gain anything from these things. You're gonna go through all these bad times for nothing. You're just, and that's, I see it all the time. I see people, and you talked, and I'm not going to get into details of the situation you talked about, but you talked about a guy that you just recently heard his story, and it was a story that made you think, man, I don't have it that bad. And like you said, there are always those people out there, and I see people all the time that don't really have it that bad, but they are victims. They're freaking dead in the water. They don't know how to overcome what they're facing. And man, that is a real struggle, just that mindset.
So, you know, I got an ego just like anybody else. The thing is I don't early on, I learned a lot about getting right sized, which is what we call it. You got to get right sized. The ego is not a bad thing. I need to explain it. So the head is like a phone, a computer, okay, and then the internal workings is the brain, okay, the hardware. But you need to interact with the phone in order to get the thing to work, okay. That operating system that runs is the mind. And then through our experiences and our education, the things we read, our beliefs, our all of it is what develops our ego. So if there's something you don't like about your ego, well, guess what? You uploaded a virus. You need to run a virus, an antiviral software program in there and eradicate, which is what I had to do by going to Alcoholics Anonymous and forgetting about the drugs and the alcohol. Now, the good thing that came out of that is I went to football games, baseball games, and hockey games for free. And because I was the designated driver, I didn't drink. So we would load the van up with a bunch of crazy firemen, and they would pay my way. And I'm the designated driver, brother. And every once in a while I'd pull them out from, help them to avoid getting their ass beat too much, and throw them back in the van and bring everybody home. It was wonderful. But the ego part is a very dangerous thing, because when you start to understand the emotional and the spiritual side of this, you start to understand that you're not all that, man. You ain't all that. Just another wheel. You just done another wheel, another cog in the wheel. You're doing something for a greater good rather than for your own good. So what's happened to me, I had to transfer into, okay, what is the greater good here? Number one, where is God in all this? Number two, what is the greater good? See, because God gets all the glory for this stuff. Yeah, he's put me in some positions to be successful and be recognizable and stuff. And it's really uncomfortable. It really is. I like being successful, but the whole recognition and the notoriety and all that, I could really do without all that, to be honest with you. I'm just another guy, And when you get that peace that, God gets all the glory, it's real simple. It keeps you right-sized. You live from humility. You start to understand, that's what he meant by the greatness is in the humility. See, because I serve a master, and it's not alcohol. It don't run around in a skirt. I don't put it in my nose. I don't drive it. I don't dress it. I don't do any of that. My master is far greater than that, and provides opportunities for me to do things that I enjoy doing. That's the crazy part. He has planned my life better than I could have planned it myself. I mean, I had a plan, but the way that my life has gone has surpassed my plan. And that's what I call blessings. So the things I've been blessed with, I don't deserve them, man. I don't deserve them. When I got sober, I got mercy. I didn't get justice. I'd have been in jail if I got justice.
Yeah.
I got mercy. And then I have been blessed all along through all this. It's really, it plays into the whole training aspect. If you can stay centered and focused and be emotionally mature, spiritually grounded, and mentally and physically fit, man, your career will be incredible. Not only that, your family life, your children, all of that will be incredible. I got kids that like to party, and their old man don't party. My kids ain't never seen me drunk or high, never. And they're like, Dad doesn't know. He doesn't know anything about this. Something's wrong with him. He's missing a gene or something, until my daughter started bartending and she ran across some guys that knew me. And they're like, "You're Ric Jorge's daughter?" And she's like, Yeah. You're Ric Jorge, that's him. He's a fireman, I think. No, yeah, he's a fireman. She goes, "You're his daughter?" And they're like, she's like, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "Do you know who your dad is?" They tell her stories, and she ends up coming home one day and says, "Hey, I got a question." She's like acting like a parent. She goes, "Come over here, sit down." I'm like, "What the hell's that all about?" Sit down, and it's just me and the kids living in the house. I ended up getting full custody and stuff. And so she says, "Who are you?" I said, "What? What kind of question is that? I'm your father." She says, "No, who are you really?" And so I explained to her, and she was like, "Why didn't you?" I didn't go into great detail because there's a lot of stuff she don't need to know. None of them do,
Oh, yeah.
And if the time comes up, the story comes up. But because kids don't do what you tell them to do, they do what you do, And so you get blessed with things like that. Like eventually it gets to the point. Now my daughter's coming up on 4 years sober. My other son is killing it down in Fort Lauderdale, working at a pizzeria on the beach, chasing girls, drinking beer, having a good old time. But he's paying his own rent, He's getting to be a little bit older now. So I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He says, "What? I got a job." I said, "You got a job? You ain't got no career, boy. That's what you gonna do, when you 70 years old, flipping pizza? Come on, man. Unless it's your store,
Yeah.
But So you give them a little bit of guidance in the way you can, but the humility makes you more approachable as a father, and the fire service makes you more approachable as an officer, as a fellow fireman, as an instructor. You know, the humility allows you to keep learning. You know, I love that saying that we have in the fire service. You know, when you've learned everything there is to learn, it's time to go.
Yeah.
You know, humility plays a really big deal, and giving that glory to God is just that keeps me in check. That's why I pray. I pray to remind me that I ain't in control. He opens the door, I walk through it. It's real simple.
Yeah.
God's my forcible entry tool.
You need to put that on a t-shirt right there. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
I was going to share a quote I just came across yesterday, and I think it definitely applies. So this is actually Pablo Picasso, which is weird, but anyway, it says, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away." And I think that's right along the lines of what we're talking about right here.
Picasso wrote
Yeah,
that?
Pablo Picasso.
Wow,
it's on the
good.
on the internet, so you know it's true. It's got to be true. But that's exactly what we're talking about. You know, we're going through these things, and I know I haven't said much about myself, but we're going through these things, and then we are given those situations, that growth, that refinement, to help others. You know, you tell your story right now, and I put it out, and I hope that it reaches as many people as possible. Not so my name gets out there, but so Ted in Connecticut and Susie in freaking Oregon that need to hear your story, hear it, and know that, man, maybe I'm not alone. Man,
That's right.
maybe I'm not that bad of a firefighter because I'm struggling with my mask right now. I just need to help. You know what I mean? And that is a powerful, huge, powerful tool. And so that's exactly why we're doing what we're doing. And I love it.
That using that example. So I couldn't keep my mask on my face. And I learned this breathing technique from Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, which is diaphragmatic breathing. And then I speak with Gavin DeBecker. They introduced me to it. And, I mean, I met all these people. I'm not name dropping for the sake of name dropping to make me look good. I'm name dropping because it's important that you understand, that the information that Ric Jorge is talking about comes from some high level dudes, man.
Yeah.
You know, Commander Eric Potterat was the head psychologist for the United States Navy SEALs BUDS program, and is the one that is directly commissioned by W, the second one, to increase the passing ratio of BUDS, which was abysmal at 80% failure rate. He wanted to increase the passing rate without decreasing the standard. Now, there's a fucking novel idea. Yeah. Don't make it easier, just prepare them better. Okay. So he incorporates these techniques that we utilize, but his is box breathing. And so there's so many different breathing techniques. I end up developing my own. It's a triangle breathing, and you inhale, and then you hold, and then you hum, and then exhale. And that's the simple version of it. There's a couple sweet spots in there and some details, but that ends up what works for me, because I can't envision a box in my head when I'm focused on a task and the anxiety starts to come up. I have to be able to hold my breath and do things so I feel it, instead of using my mind. I can focus on my task and feel when it's time to breathe and whatnot to do it. Okay. And that ends up resetting me. And then one day by accident, I'm messing around with our air packs, and I overheard somebody say, "Hey, if you do that real slow, you can go ahead and without activating the pass alarm." And I tried it. I said, "I'll be damned, look at that." And I said, "I wonder if I can keep doing that." And I learned how to bypass the pneumatic alarm. It was a Scott pack, so it's a vibra alert. And I learned how to bypass that. And then I remembered, when I was going through the fire academy years ago, we had the old MSA with the corrugated tubing, looked like an elephant trunk. And they taught us how to do all kinds of crazy breathing, all the way down to a bottle, where you had the bottle in your mouth and you had to breathe through the bottle. And so we're incorporating all this stuff in it. And what came together, all because I couldn't breathe. A breathing technique and another technique utilizing the air pack to be able to extend low air which prior to the new packs coming out, which are a third of the bottle, there used to be a quarter of the bottle. And NFPA said it was 1150 or somewhere, 1250, somewhere around there, where VibraAlert or low air would go off, give or take 250 PSI in either direction. So our equipment is technical, but it's not precision. Okay. Yeah. We taught guys, by teaching myself, I thought it was a big deal that the first time doing that, I could extend my VibraAlert for 48 minutes. I was like, oh shit. And then I never broke the 1 hour thing, but I got the 54, 56 minutes, or not 52 or 54 minutes. I never broke an hour. We got guys doing 82 minutes on 1,000 PSI. And this is after we teach them the technique, because you have to learn how to do the technique first, and you practice it a little bit. Then we throw your ass under duress. I mean, duress. You're working hard. You're working hard. Then when your VibraAlert goes off, boom, we put you in an area of safe refuge, and you have to catch your breath, slow your heart rate down, all of that stuff down, then start incorporating these techniques. And we had a guy do 82 minutes at our last class. It's ridiculous, bro. That's 12 PSI per minute.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. So we've calculated it that if you're under 20 to 25 PSI a minute, you're going to extend roughly close to about an hour. What that does is increase your profile of survivability in a Mayday situation, lost, trapped, disoriented. If you can find an area of safe refuge where fire's not going to overrun you, this is a technique. Bro, you'd be there so long. You'd be like, hey, by the way, when you guys finally get here, could you bring me a pizza? Because I'm going to be hungry by then. You're not concerned so much about your air. And now if you got a full bottle, imagine the confidence that you have.
Yeah.
All of that because Ric Jorge had a little freaking anxiety attacks and couldn't keep his mask on his face and had to learn how to breathe and everything all over. I'm not that smart, bro. God got his fingerprints all over that.
Yep.
Got his finger, and it's not for my glory, it's for his, but it's for everyone's benefit. Yep. And so we just keep teaching it, all of that's part of the reform. There's other stuff too, but I mean, everybody has that, it's not like, that was just an example, and I that's just how God uses everybody like that. Yep. He's using you. If you've ever had a save, congratulations. Been doing God's work. You get a good stop on a house and save somebody's junk. Congratulations, you're doing God's work. You helped some little kid that was lost somewhere, calmed down and brought him back to mom and dad. Congratulations, you did God's work. You restored man's humanity to the parents, and got the kid back someplace where they're safe and comfortable, and at the same time made a hero of yourself because the kid looks up to you. Why? Not because you're Billy Badass, but because you were so nice and kind. It's God's work, man.
I think that, and I can't speak for everybody, but the more I talk to people and the more people are comfortable talking about it, I hear that everybody has faced this at some point to some level. And I guarantee you I have. And I wouldn't even put it in the realm of like big things are happening to me in my life that, that stress is the cause of it. Just probably, I would say maybe 3-4 months ago, doing an on-air workout. And for some reason, I start getting that itch. Like, I got to get this thing off. And it's just a weird deal. I don't understand it. It was not the first time I've had my mask on in a long time. We do on-air workouts pretty regularly, and it just happened. And so luckily, I was able to stop and tell myself, dude, you're outside of the fire station. There is no factor going on right now that is going to hurt or kill you. There's nothing going on. And it just takes me stopping, kind of resetting everything, and then getting back into it. But if you haven't dealt with that, if you haven't been honest and reached out for some of that knowledge and some of that, training, you're not going to be able to deal with it like that way. You're not going to be able to reset. And so we need to be honest, and we need to reach out.
I use an example a lot. I use a quote. I don't know who made it, but it's awesome. I heard it somewhere a long, long time ago, and it stuck with me that storms are not the time to develop foundations. Storms reveal foundations. And so the storm is exactly what you're talking about. You're going to have some kind of an incident that happens that you're going to think, I can't do this anymore. I want to take this off, whatever. And it's going to come out of nowhere. And it's a little unnerving. Like, where the hell did that come from? I've been doing this for 10, 15, 20, 25 years and never had that happen. And now here I am, this happens. It's like, oh God. And that's what I mean by emasculating, when it starts to grow and that animal starts to grow so big that you actually start listening to it. So part of what you understand is that attention and focus is the primary vehicle to challenge. So if my attention is on my situation and the pack feels heavy on me, it's restricting this, and my focus is on my inability to be able to think or to breathe comfortably and to get a full breath, and I can't think, and that's what I'm focused on. I can't breathe proper. I can't. Oh, guess what? You stand a good chance of being called Nostradamus, because whatever you're thinking is what's going to come true. But if you're aware of that and you have prepared prior to the storm by learning how to breathe, to be able to relax and reset, okay? You got to reset. When you do that, think of it as like when you gap set force, okay? When you gap it and then you set your tool in there, the reason for that is so that you can reset your Halligan to force. And that's what you're doing. You're resetting yourself. So you're gapping, okay? That's the training. The set is the training that you did before the training to prepare you for the anxiety, for the breathing, for any of that, okay? That's your reset. And then after you've reset, boom, go through, finish the exercise. But if you haven't prepared prior to that, you have this much chance of surviving that or being successful. Yeah. If you've prepared prior, well, guess what? You stand a pretty damn good chance of surviving this. That's why we train. That's why we prepare for all these crazy different scenarios and everything. Because to be well trained is to be well prepared, and good training creates its own luck, because luck is not a fireground tactic that you want to, lean into for too long. Yep. You want to create your own luck with good training. You want to set yourself up in right positions. Oh, I'm really good at self-extricating and RIT and all this and that. And guess what? 75% RIT is not to put yourself in a shitty situation to begin with, and be situationally aware of things that are going around you, so that if something goes sideways, you've already recognized it and prepared to be able to avoid that. That's 75% of RIT. The other 25 is how to get your stuff out of harm's way when you're in harm's way or going to get somebody else,
Yeah.
And sometimes that'll happen even when you do everything right. That's just the fire service, man. You do everything right, the outcome's not guaranteed to be successful.
Yeah. I have failed to mention your book yet, but the co-author of Developing Firefighter Resiliency, and it's obviously based on exactly what you're talking through right now. I borrowed a copy last night from my buddy Justin. I didn't know he had it, or I'd have read through it before we talk. But
what's his last name?
Justin Mann.
Justin Mann. You got good taste, brother.
It's a good dude for sure. But I just looking at the cover, obviously the title that I just said, but the little line below it, a success-based training model. And that right there tells you enough. That tells you a lot, because I've been on 18 years, and I know that just in that 18 years I have seen the negative, the failure-based model, and it does not work. And I know that you preach that as well, but I just love seeing that right there. It makes me want to read it just by seeing that. And so we kind of speak a little bit about learning failure-based does not work. We need to take another approach.
So that has got Bob Carpenter's signature all over it. That is his tagline. It's success-based training model. And then if you read the back cover, a lot of that is Bob's writing on the back cover. And I mean, we all help tweak it, but the majority of that body is Bob Carpenter's stuff. So Bobby, there's a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to success-based training. It means people think we don't let them fail. Oh, no. You're going to fail. That's part of learning. That's part of learning, man. The home run king, right? The Sultan of SWAT, Babe Ruth, he was the home run king. He was also the strikeout king. If you don't dare greatly, you don't gain greatly, And so it's okay to fail. That's what training is about. What Bob is talking about and what that tagline means, we will test people and call it training when it's not training, it's testing. If we set you out there to go do some drill, here's a shit sandwich, take a big bite of that because nobody's going to get through this. What the hell are you teaching? What are you learning? So now, hey, you're going to be drilled in company ops and you're going to be doing fire attack. You guys are going to be doing a defensive attack. You guys are going to be doing search. You guys are going to be taking the top off the building. Everybody's got an assignment. You have 2 weeks to prepare for this. This is the scenario. And then we're going to run it live in 2 weeks. The companies have had the opportunity to train together and practice, okay? Then they show up and they get tested to evaluate to see how well they've done, right? No. That testing is to evaluate how well your training has set in. And that's what success-based training is. Success-based training is preparing you for all of these different things. It's just that what our book focuses on is the software, a lot of the mental, the emotional stuff. We talk about character. The book opens with character. Character is the foundation of leadership. If you don't understand about virtues, individual virtues, honesty, courage, things like that, those are the characteristics of character. And character is the foundation of leadership. You read all the books you want about leadership. If you ain't got that, bro, you ain't a leader. You're a paper champion. You're a manager. You're just a really good manager. And so Bob puts together the classes, and this is how you teach. Okay. And this is how you develop it. It's not any one specific thing. We use some examples, but incorporate that stuff into your training because, man, there's so many people that teach the hard skills that are so good at what they do. We just incorporate the software. It's the soft skills. We prepare you for that. That's the success-based training model thing. That's why. And that cover was, between the three of us, we agreed. I told him, I said, I'd rather just see a black and white cover. And then Bob was like, well, I don't want to see, if I see fire on the cover of another fire book again, he said, I'm just going to light my head on fire, And so, and Dave agreed. And Dave had the idea of doing these, what if we did resilience pictures? And we all agreed. And so we put pictures, individual pictures in there of guys that have been through that type of training and what it kind of looked like. And we did a black and white cover because we kind of like the original, black, white, red, and gold, for the fire service. And that's how that cover came about. There's some more backstory on that, but there was supposed to be a crayon attached to that so that the firemen could take notes at the end of each chapter. There's a blank page to take notes on. And Bobby Halton said no, because firemen would probably eat that crayon and then it'd be a choking hazard. And we'd have to put a disclaimer on the book, and it just kind of got shot down. But
I find this interesting, and I really appreciate that, why I brought it up, because that was the model that I lived through the younger years of my time as a firefighter. We would have training on the calendar. So, okay, we got to go do this training. We'd go out, and that's what it would be. It would be some crazy scenario. You go search either a smoked up room or you're blacked out or something. You feel a window. No, that's not a window. You feel a door. No, that's not a door.
really
And you screw everything up because you didn't really know what you were even there to do.
And you weren't allowed to have a flashlight.
No flashlights. And at the end, you'd sit there and you'd hear about what you screwed up and what you need to do better. And all right, we'll see you later. You're headed to the firehouse, and that's it. And it's like, what just happened? What positive thing did we gain out of that? And nothing. you, and I've heard you talk about it too. And it's funny, I'm pretty sure you even describe it as the blue flu, which is literally what we call it.
Oh yeah. I was going to interrupt you and talk about that. That's good. Keep going. Keep going.
But that is literally what we call it. You know, the training is on the schedule. If you put training on the schedule any length of time ahead of time, you're going to have a drastic increase of sick leave that day. And so that is a direct result of that. I guarantee you.
The training, absolutely. That's your training model come to fruition. When guys are called, our overtime would go through the ceiling on training days. Everybody call in sick. That blue flu. Nope, we're out. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I used to think, well, these guys are just scared.
Yeah.
And then after a few years of going through that, you know, because you're young, you know, and I could, man, you go ahead, beat on me all you want. You ain't gonna break me. You know, I had that knucklehead mentality. And I didn't know good training from bad training at the time. So I just figured all of it was good. And I couldn't understand why these guys were such pussies. So, but they weren't. They weren't. It was a humiliating experience going through that. Had very little to do with education and retention, you know? And so, you know, we prefer to black the building out and let firemen use their lights and everything else and whatnot. And, you know, if they find a window, I tell them, congratulations, you found a window, but there's no way out because there's been an external collapse and it's blocking that exit. And I'll tell them that about doors and windows and all that. So we want them to identify it. We want them to use flashlights. Everything is in bounds. You know, if we have an entanglement, they get the cut. Now, there are those times where you have to black the fireman out. And all it takes is a simple explanation. Hey, today we're focusing on mass confidence. So what we notice is that the mind has a tendency to run because when we take vision away, it's the strongest sense. Excuse me, it's the most dominant sense. Sense of smell is the strongest. The most dominant sense is vision. When we take that away, people get a little sideways. So we're here to practice that today. So if you start to get sideways, this is good. This is what we're shooting for because we want to practice on that and develop a weakness into a strength. That's why we're here. Not to not explain that to people. And then when they go through it, it's humiliating and embarrassing. They feel ashamed, like that shouldn't be happening. But actually, it should be happening if you understand how the body functions. And so training takes on so many different aspects. And sometimes we want to bring 3, 4, 5 points home in one training because that's all we've got. And some genius came up with the idea that all training needs to fit into a 4-hour box. I got news for you. You're a retard, okay? Because, you know, you should be wearing one size underwear too small, and then you'll understand why 4 hours doesn't work for everybody. You know, everybody's different. You know, training needs to be fluid. If you can fit it in 2 hours, great. If you got to use 6 hours, so be it. If it's going to be multiple days, okay. The goal of training needs to be done right the first time, and retention is the main thing. And firemen, we're pragmatic. We understand why something is done that way, and we understand how something is put together. You'll get buy-in 100%. We just never prepare our instructors to be able to teach that way. You know, it's always scare the shit out of them, beat them up. That should be good, you know, and it's based off your capability instead of the general capability, you know. And what I mean by that is what's the goal of the drill? And a goal of the drill, you know, you can do search and rescue and use Hollywood smoke. And on the outside, just have a little burn barrel just so that they get the smell. Psychologically, that increases heart rates. And if you're monitoring heart rates through Fitbits or polar monitors or whatever it is you're doing, you can see the heart rate increase. That is an arousal level. That's a point where you can look at it and go, okay, our training's already effective. We haven't even started yet. They're already anxious to a certain extent or anticipating to a certain extent. You know, there's a lot of cool aspects of training. That's why I like training so much.
Yeah. And it's funny that you're kind of headed absolutely the direction I was going to bring up next is, you know, I hear a lot of, when we have training, you know, you almost have two groups. You have the one group that's like, they're digging into any information they can get. You know, if the shift before went through the training that they're going through today, they're freaking getting the details. You know, what'd you guys do? How'd it go? I don't want to hear any of it. You know, just tell me when it is and let me show up, and because I want to get the most out of it. If I know exactly what what's going to happen and where the victim is and all this, I don't feel like I get anything out of it. But there is a very distinct group of people that are like that. But for me, I think, I just need to know, like you said, what is the purpose of this training? Are we searching this blacked out house because we're working on communication? Are we searching this blacked out house because we're working on RIT? Are we working on our search techniques or drag? What is it? And so I don't feel like that is a cheat, but I feel like that is something to kind of guide us to say, okay, these are the things that we are focusing on working on right now. And
Yep.
and so that's kind of a big point that I was about to bring up too.
So we have in Palm Beach County, we have a trailer that was designed by a fire chief, and it's a maze, and it's 3 stories. He did a hell of a job on it. Really good job. He's got exit doors where an instructor can actually go in through that door, or they can open it from the inside and get out. If somebody got stuck, somebody panicked, whatever, which is good foresight, right? But if you're anticipating that you have to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 exits in your maze, there's something wrong with your training already. Okay, this is where guys are going to freak out. Why in the hell are they freaking out? Why are we letting them freak out? So I was asked, what do you think about this training? And I said, well, I think you're going to have wholesale failure. And a different chief said, why would you say that? And I said, well, when's the last time we taught them the nuances of this? And he said, they're firemen. They should know that already. And I wanted to say something smart ass. And I said, well, you asked, I told you. I think you're going to have wholesale failure. I think that lasted like 2 or 3 days before they stopped. And they said, so I got called back to the principal's office and said, all right, what's your plan? And I said, well, the plan is to get them familiar with it, Yeah. And they said, how? And so I explained to them, well, we use a process. When a guy comes to our firehouse and he's a little sketched out, they know. So our firehouse became the firehouse because several members in that firehouse were very good at instructing and handling people with problems. And so we would take it upon ourselves. Instead of pointing it out to that person, we would say, yeah, as a company, we want to get better at this. And maybe I'd pull them aside and I go, hey, I kind of struggle with this. So if you could just hang with me a little bit, that'd be a really big help. I appreciate it, brother. And they just look at me like, what? I go, yeah, it's not really my strong suit, See, I take it on me. If I point it out to them, I'm ostracizing them. I'm putting them out on that. They already know they suck at it. They don't need to know that everybody else knows. That's embarrassing. We're already set them up for failure. So to bring them into the fray and make them feel like they're a part of the unit is really important. And we go to training, and I was explaining to them, and they said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, first thing we do is we turn the lights on and we open up all the doors and all the hatches, and we run through in our day uniform with gloves and helmets on. And then after that, we put them on in their turnout gear, and we let them run through in turnout gear. And they're like, well, wait a minute, you're already, familiarizing them with it. I said, oh, we not done yet, And so now they put their air packs on. And what we're doing is now when they go through with their air packs on, we close the doors, we leave the lights on. And then when they go through again, we turn the lights off, we give them a flashlight. Here's your flashlight, okay? You can turn your flashlight on anytime that you want, but you cannot move forward or backwards. You cannot move in either direction while that light is on. You can turn that light on to orient yourself. And then it has to turn off, and then you've got to move. Yep. And you have to try to limit the number of times you can turn the light on, okay? And well, how many times? I said, I don't care. That's up to you. Just try to limit it and minimize it as much as possible. And so they'll go through, and you may not see the light come on at all. The next phase is on full air, and they go through with the doors open. Sometimes we'll eliminate the doors and we'll just leave the lights on and see if they perform okay? And then we turn the lights off. And if they went through it without a mask on and never turned their light on, but now they're on air and they're turning the light on and whatnot, we know to back them up one step. And we back them up so the lights stay on, because now they're having a comfort with the equipment being on there. clearly they're telling themselves something that's making them uncomfortable, right? Because their focus is not, their attention is more on how uncomfortable they are, and their focus is on not taking it off rather than whatever is directly the task ahead of you, right? So we have some teaching points to be able to roll up on that. Now, if they go through it and they never turn their light on, awesome. Next phase, we take an air pack, we tie it up, and we fucking roll it, throw it in there, and we'll hit the pass alarm, and the air pack is full. And the minute the pass alarm, go, and that student goes, and they go to the air pack, find the air pack. They find the air pack. First thing they do is shut off the pass alarm. They take their air pack, they low profile, they make sure there's plenty of air in that pack there. They take their pack, they take it off, they set it down, they take that other pack, and they swap regulators. And then they put that pack on. After they've got that pack secured, they tie their air pack up, and the same way that the one they found, and they activate the pass alarm and they take off. And as soon as the pass alarm goes, the next person goes. And it's a resetting drill. And they keep doing it. They start to get the hang of that. They go in backwards. They do all kinds of stuff. And so the explanation was because the chief's like, I said, now with regards to you, well, they already know the layout. Well, on our can, it's a confidence can. You need to take the word confidence off there and instead call it the piss down your leg can, okay? Because you just want to scare people, okay? But we're teaching confidence.
Yeah.
That's what mask confidence is all about. Because I know that when that guy hits a scenario that he's unfamiliar with, he has already been trained for the storm. His foundation is going to show. He's prepared. That's what teaching is. That's what training is, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just search. You can do that with anything. You know, we get guys, we have props, exterior props that we prepare them for, you know, for roof ventilation, circular saw, chainsaw, all kinds of different, you know, hand tools, which you'll show them how to use the irons, because the irons will always start, you know, saw won't always start, you know, blade goes bad, whatever. We don't care about the blade on the axe because we use the flat side, depending. Most of our work is done with the blunt side. So in the roof ops on the flat deck, when the guys are using the circular saw, it's very hard to sense what that feels like. So we get them comfortable, and we let them do it time and time again. We're in their ear all the time. Feel, listen, and feel what that saw feels like when you're hitting the members underneath. Very hard because, man, K-saw is that's the strongest tool we got. That's the most powerful tool we got. And so then we'll light smoke up underneath it. So it starts coming up through the cracks and it's open, you know, and it kind of obscures their vision. And then after that, the next phase is they put their hoods on, but they put them on backwards so they can't see what they're doing.
Yeah.
And we let them hold the hood up, set the saw. Once the saw is set, the hood drops, and they've got to cut 8 feet in a line and try to float over the rafters without being able to see. And so now it's body positioning. Now they're listening. Now they're feeling. See, because it's not fear, it's risk. When risk goes up, focus and attention goes up. As long as you know how to direct that focus and attention for the student, they're not going to focus. They're not going to pay attention and focus on the scary part, the anxious part, unless it's grown to such an extent that they need more work, you know, and work is just repetition. And if they can't do that, we back them back down to the other drill. And they get comfortable doing that. And we explain it. We gain confidence, right? So they're already competent because they got the tool in their hand. Now we're developing confidence. And what we're trying to instill is mastery. And that's me and Bob Carpenter go back and forth. He says, competence begets confidence and confidence begets competence. And I'm like, no, you have to be competent before you can develop confidence. Can you develop confidence at the same time that yes, competence, but you know, he has a saying that I love. He says, if you don't know what the words mean, it's all semantics. And so we have these little bouts and stuff. It's cool, but we agree on the mastery portion, you know, and the mastery portion, that's the money shot. That's what we're trying to, for our students to attain through training. Yeah. That's the end goal of all of it.
I was about to bring that up. I've heard you talk about the confident mastery in other podcasts, and it's basically, you know, a lot of the times you'll just hear that as crawl, walk, run, basically. And that's
Right.
what it is,
Same thing.
just kind of setting things up in a purposeful, I think that's the key word there. It is set up in a way that's purposeful. It's not just thrown together to
There's
test
that word
somebody.
again, bro. Purpose.
I know it just
Crazy,
keeps
huh?
it's, but that's, and something that I wanted to kind of bring up just personal note. We do a lot of forcible entry stuff on with my crew. We've got a door at my station, and it's just fun to use. And so
Who's your
that's,
station,
which
bro?
is,
Give me a shout out.
Edmond, Oklahoma, station number 3. So it's the Do
Right,
Work
Edmund.
Company. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But
and I'm digging the hat too, bro.
This is that's a Smoothbore Cartel.
I'm part of the Smoothbore Cartel.
We took a trip down to Houston and did a little bit of training down there, and Kyle was very generous to give us a little bit of gear. So
my boy Kyle is quite the accomplished instructor. He is very good. I'm proud of that man.
Yeah,
proud of that.
He's very knowledgeable dude, that's for sure. Looking forward to getting to know him a little bit as well.
He'd be a good podcast. He's good.
Oh yeah. But part of some of the training that we've done is we'll black ourselves out and work on low visibility, basically no visibility forcible entry, 1 and 2 person forcible entry. And doing that, I guarantee you
quick question.
Yep.
Are your Halligans wrapped?
They are half wrapped. We give ourselves enough room to get to the shoulders, if that makes sense.
So, no, that's why I asked.
Yep.
Those people don't understand that. You can elaborate on that if you want. So you force you're doing 1 and 2 man operations with 0 visibility.
Yeah. And I was just going to say the most interesting thing that came from that for myself is that not having that vision, like you're talking about, that you bank on so heavily, it exposes where you suck so dramatically. I mean, it's very easily seen. Oh my gosh, I need to work on my tool placement. Oh my gosh, I need to work on my, whatever it is. It's funny how easy those things pop out when you don't have that vision.
So I did that training at our firehouse because somebody kept wrapping the Halligans, and they're wasting hockey tape, and they're wrapping freaking IV tubing and all kinds of shit. It looks great, but it's not functional, And I kept ripping it off, and somebody kept putting it back on. And finally, I worked on the ship where I found the guy putting it back on. I go, "Why are you doing that?" He goes, "Because got to have grip." I said, "Oh." I said, "We have a forcible entry prop too." I said, "Let's go outside. I want to try something with you. Just bring your helmet and your hood, And I give him the irons, and I go, "All right." I said, I'm gonna set it for you, but I want you to put your hood on backwards, and I want you to put your helmet on. You're gonna do single person entry." He said, "Well, I can't see." I said, "Yeah, and sometimes you're not gonna be able to see in a smoky condition, and there are gonna be 2 of us, and you're gonna do this with a 2-man operation because you ain't gonna take the chance of hitting this one thing." And so I explained to him how you're using the bar, why we tune our tools, our Halligan, and create the shoulders and define them. And then you're using the bar as a jig. It's a guide, and it leads you to the shoulders so you can strike to be able to set it and move it forward. I mean, you can't see. This is the best you're going to get out of it. And also another reason why you use an 8-pound axe instead of a 6-pound axe. A lot of people think 6-pound because it's lighter. Oh, it's more, what's the word I'm using for? It's easier for everybody to use. No, it's not. You use more body energy than you do inertia. Oh, yeah. Inertia is just a law of physics. Let the weight of the tool do the work. An 8-pound axe will outwork a 6-pound axe every time. Yeah. So, and that's how I drove home. This is why we don't wrap our Halligan, dude. It's a striking tool. It ain't a prying tool. I mean, I could see wrapping a hook, to a certain extent, like maybe the bottom half of it, because I slide my hand on the top part when I'm throwing to pull ceilings and whatnot. And it took that lesson. And finally, the damn Halligan, they quit wrapping the damn things, because that's why that exercise actually drove that point home. And I learned that on a call. I was like, oh my God, we can't see. How are we going? We'll slide it along, and we couldn't slide it because of the damn the ribbing that we had on there. And ever since then, I was just like, nope, That's not going to happen again. Because that was that point where it showed us, you suck. You suck big.
But yeah,
But we looked cool.
Oh yeah. I think that's another interesting kind of rabbit hole to go down. And this is a conversation I've had with my crew, and this is a conversation that I will have to have more with my crew, because we're not there. But it's that ownership of your stuff. It's knowing what your tools are, knowing what they do, knowing how to make them the best that you can make them to get the most out of them. And looking at them and just the fact that, and I'm talking to myself too, because I haven't known this stuff for very long. I'm a captain. I've been on 18 years. I didn't know how to tune a Halligan, I don't know, maybe a year ago. So I'm telling on myself as well. But the amount of firefighters that are expected to use these things and don't know how to tune them, don't know why you would want to tune them. It's sad. And the fact that it's almost like we don't care, oh, that Halligan is behind my seat. I hang my jacket on it every day. I know it's there, because if I don't have anything to hang my jacket on, we got a
it's
problem.
Not there. Yeah.
But that's it. And it's like, we got to get better than that. We got to start owning our stuff, knowing why we do this stuff. And it's it. We need to get better. I'll just leave it at that.
Ownership is, I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction. So
Yeah.
I've done videos and we've done training where we will take, we're limited. We got a 3-man engine, we got a 3-man truck, and we got a 3-man rescue most of the time, a rescue being the ambulance, right? And sometimes it's 2, we on decreased staffing. So minimum staffing in our department actually should be called maximum staffing, because that's the most you're ever going to get. On occasion, they'll exceed it, but it was seldom did you ever exceed it. No, you're at minimum staffing. I just thought to myself, isn't that ironic? This is the least that we're told we have to have, and you're looking at it as like this is our benchmark. Yeah. When you're supposed to exceed that. But so we do a lot of ladder work and stuff, and we did a lot of ventilation work. And even though we were on an engine, our department at the time did not utilize trucks and didn't utilize them properly when we did utilize them. And we don't have true trucks. We have quints. And so and we just always prepared ourselves for being able to vent and use ladder work, because there's sometimes you got to make a balcony. You can't go. We've had fires in a townhome where you can't go in the front door. You got to go in the balcony, and we had to get good at it. And so we learned techniques on how to do that kind of stuff. And some of it was being able to anchor the ladder by using our irons. And so we'd have the irons and a sledgehammer, and we would drive the Halligan into the pavement and right across the front, and then the axe across the front of that. And now it's secure. And so we started understanding that, we need more than one set of irons. Why we only got one set of irons on here? And so we started putting multiple sets of irons on there. We would buy our own tools, because we didn't have Halligans, we have hooligans, and the damn things you could pole vault with them. Some of them 4 or 5 feet long, and it's like you drag them down. You'd have to tie webbing to drag them to where you were going, And when we started getting real Halligans and educating people why they're 30 inches, why the dimensions are the way they are, why the fulcrum is the way that it is to increase leverage, and how to increase leverage by marrying them or using a roof hook. And so we started really getting into things like that. We had multiple sets. We bought them. We had a fire chief come in and starts walking through our apparatus, looking into all the containers, all the compartments. And we have a set up inside, secured inside. So when the fireman gets out, he got an option. He can bring the irons with him, and if he's on fire attack, the irons are there. We've also got another set in a compartment where they are in most of our apparatus, right? Which is a whole another topic of making your apparatus identical across 50 firehouses, which have different areas, each one of them, but they want to make them so firemen know where everything is. Just really. I don't even want to touch that. But so this guy saw we had 3 Halligans, and he took 2 of them or we had 2 and he took one of them. And it was like, what came in the next day? Oh, the chief came by. He said we had too many Halligans. He was going to give one to a company that didn't have one. And I said, you got about 5 minutes to call that fire chief and tell him we want our tools back because those privately owned. That's a personal tool. Now, if he tells us we can't have it on the apparatus, that's one thing. But it's the same tool that the department is buying, and we bought them on our own to have them there. And if not, I'm gonna call the police. I'm gonna fill out a theft report, and he go ahead and explain himself to the fire chief, and to the investigator and whatnot. We got our tool back, and got into a bit of a piss and match, but I don't really care because it ain't none of his business. You shouldn't be touching our apparatus. That's our apparatus. You want to come in and ask questions, it's one thing, but now you're altering things and we think it's there. Had we not got that pass down, imagine what it would have been like if we'd have got up on a scene and needed a second set of irons and they're gone. Holy shit, we got a problem now. Now it falls back on the, not getting the pass down and then to the chief and all this, and it makes everybody look bad.
Yeah.
So what we started doing then with regards to ownership, we started welding our freaking apparatus number to the tools. And that way we knew if we saw that tool anywhere, because you could use, magic marker or tape or paint, that should come out. Weld ain't coming off, brother. You can grind it, but I'm gonna be able to see where it was before, and you can put some work. You want to steal our tool, you're gonna have to work for that thing, And so that's what we started doing. And we ran a scenario in a training where we used multiple sets. And one of the chiefs said, how did you guys have the appropriate amount? Did somebody tell you? No, sir. We carry, because like what you were talking about, firemen will tell you about the drill and whatnot, which I don't care if it's a drill I'm doing because the goal is always the same. It's a singleness of purpose. There's one particular goal. So yeah, the goal is to prepare yourself mentally. Oh, well, how do they do that? Well, they do this, they do this, they do this. Well, that's cool. You still have to do the drill.
Yeah.
So we get to see how well prepared you are mentally. And if you were able to prepare by the other company telling you, and then you showed up and you're prepared for it, then you know what's working? Visualization is working. And that's what we want you to learn how to do. Yeah. But that was a complete something shiny sidebar there. So the chief saw that we had these tools, and that became the point where he started talking to the other chiefs, and they made it acceptable to have multiple tools, and he was impressed that ours had our apparatus number on it, which is in the background right here, 33. And it was, it changed, but there was a reason for it. There was a reason for it. And they recognized that it was we were well prepared, and they liked that. You know why? Because it means we're good at what we're doing. And it means they're going to look good because we're good at what we're doing. It's going to shine honorably on them and the department. Everybody wins, Yeah. Now they could get behind that, but I don't know what the other guy was thinking, but I can tell you once again, show me what your promotional process looks like. I'll show you what your department values. You value somebody that can pass a test. That's what you're going to get. Somebody with great memory. That's it. Ain't a fireman, There's a lot to be said for being a fireman. This is a hard, dirty ass work, bro. It takes a lot of sweat equity to be recognized by your peers as a Jake, as a squared away fireman. That's something you earn, man. That's not something you get just because, you got a badge now. Don't work like that. But I wanted to put that little spin on that ownership thing. That's what we had to do that. They were taking twos off our apparatus. I couldn't believe it. And a roof hook too. We had a 6-foot roof hook made into an 8-foot roof hook off a roof hook that was bent and taken out of service. So we had the ends cut off and had the bar put in at 8 foot instead of 6, because some of the ceilings you can't really reach too well with a 6-foot. I'm vertically challenged, man. I ain't over 6 foot. I'm under 6 foot. So you add 2 more feet to that thing, we got something we can work with.
Yeah. So we mentioned my friend Justin here earlier, and I'm going to go back to him. That's something he has really taught me and has been a big deal. Justin, man, is his details. Details of training, details of our job goes way beyond to that next level. It's one thing to be present in training and to be a part of the training and learn a technique. That's good. but to truly get into it and learn, like, just the examples that we're talking about, learn, okay, these shoulders are squared off on the Halligan for the reason in case you need to use them in a very tight space, or if you need to use them because you can't see, and it will help you get through this door. Okay, well, that's good information. That helps me learn that. But that's like a whole nother level of truly getting into our job, knowing not only just the surface level of how to do these things, but really digging in and saying, this is why we're doing it. Okay, well, what if we do it this way, and because of this, and think about, just the mental, I don't know, I keep saying it, but that next level of truly digging into those weeds, man, that's been a really cool thing for me to kind of start thinking about.
That is Colin Powell has he has a quote that I love. He says, good leaders can see around the corner. And that's what you're talking about, being able to see around the corner. Justin's right, man. The devil's in the details. If you look at something and go, okay, we train. Listen, I got news for everybody out there. You're not paid for what you do. You're paid for what you may have to do, and you have to be prepared for every type of scenario. So if you approach it from that perspective and you become a student of your craft, it just makes it so much more enjoyable, so much more pleasurable. And the opportunity to share that with others is just, there's a very cool feeling. It's called dopamine and anandamide are the hormones that are released when you are happy. And it's very satisfying to empower a brother or a sister with a tool, a technique, a thought, or combining all of those into something that will help make them be successful. That you had the opportunity to do that with somebody, to empower them with that. It just resonates. It feels good, and that's the mark of a good leader. It's a mark of a good instructor. And those are things that we should be striving. And we've lost our way in some of that. And I think that I think it's just part of the modern fire service. It's one of those things. I mean, we're a microcosm of our society. Just look at our society, where right is wrong and wrong is right. It doesn't make sense, right? And this, what we're talking about is, that ignorance is no excuse, but the inability of me able to point it out is inexcusable. If I'm in that position, I mean, we should all be in that position. Like, whose job is it to do a 360 on fire? Everybody's. It's ongoing. It never stops. Yes, the initial 360 has to be done by the IC or whoever's in charge, because they have to get the greater picture. But you are the eyes and ears. Every fireman is the eyes and ears to incident command, and you're in constant size up. So if smoke conditions change in a particular area, you may have knocked the fire down on the first floor, and you're going, yeah, fire's under control. And the chief's on the outside seeing it coming through the roof. He's going, yeah, everybody out. This thing's gonna fall in or whatever. That greater vision comes in exactly how you just said, and how you said that your partner, senior man, is able to look at things and understand and explain these things. And I think that is that's real important, because something that took you 18 years or something that took me 24 years to learn, we can teach to the guy that's got 2 years on the job, 4 years on the job. Come here, baby. Those things are important. Why? Well, because we want to be better. Because it's part of the job. It's the part of the job that we never thought of teaching or didn't know. And so now we become the change agent, and we're creating this tradition and developing it and pushing it further down the ladder so they get it sooner. And that's what we want, man. That's the humility aspect that we talked about, That's removing your ego from that and humbly saying it's the right thing to do. It needs to be done,
That's absolutely, that's kind of where, the fire service echoes life, exactly what we've talked about earlier. Those things that you're learning after 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you're able to teach somebody that's only been in it one. That's how much bigger of a win do you want than that? That's huge. And hopefully that 1 year person really takes that to heart, because that is a huge gift right there.
Amen.
And that echoes in life. The things that we go through, they can be so helpful if we share them. They can't help anybody if we don't share them. So
That's right.
that's, listening to your story, and you really, I would say you got into a lot more of it than I've even heard you get into in previous podcasts, and I really appreciate that. But it's interesting to me, because as you're saying, as you're going through your story, I'm thinking to myself, I am literally the probably farthest opposite of you as possible, growing up, at least, that part of our lives. I never did drugs. I never drank, honestly. And you might think this is funny, but I never drank a drop of alcohol until I was 35 years old. And so, and I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying that it's funny, the differences.
How come?
I don't know. And okay, I do know, because my wife and I have had this conversation, and we'll just get into it there, and we'll go further there. But
So let me
so,
ask you why. I do this a
okay.
lot. I ask
Yeah.
questions a lot. It's called Socratic. It's the Socratic method. You ask questions. And the reason is because what we're about to get into is, while you may not have had the same upbringing or the same path that I had, um, it has to do with the emotions. So mine were ruled by insecurities and inferiorities and, self-doubt and stuff, where yours may not have been. And so there's always a catalyst. There's always a something that moves
Yeah.
people in specific directions. And that's why I ask why, because it's important. The why is important.
Yes. So, sorry, I'm writing a note down here so I don't forget
It's
it,
okay. I
because
know what you're doing, brother. It's all right. I know,
you're
not a big, I do the same thing.
uh so growing up, and before I get into that, I'll just kind of finish that thought, because I think it's important, because I don't want it to seem like I'm saying, I never did anything and you are doing something. My point is, even though our stories are so different, we still have huge purpose. We are still here for such a big, so much a bigger picture than we can ever even imagine. And even though my story doesn't involve, getting into trouble and being a thug, like you say, my story involves seeing, having vivid memories of, fifth or sixth grade, an ambulance at my house because my dad tried to commit suicide, and very intense and constant issues with mental health and things like that throughout my family. And we talked a little bit about it earlier, and I'm just going to brush it and we'll go back to it. But 13 years of being married to an addict, while having kids, and being a firefighter, and all of these things that some are maybe similar to yours, but most of them aren't. But it doesn't matter. It matters what you do with that. And we are here for different purposes when you really dig down into it. But if you pull back to the big picture, we're here for the same purpose, and that is to help people, like you
Agreed.
said, being that servant. And so
Agreed.
I just wanted to throw that out there. It's interesting, because we are all different, but we can use every single thing that we go through. But,
So your set of circumstances is different than mine, but we're the same person.
yeah.
And that's everybody. The only reason my story's different is because it's not really different. There's a lot of guys like me in the fire service.
Yeah.
They have either gotten to the point in their life where they don't want to share about it for whatever reason. They may work in a department that frowns on that, and they'll lose a job, just from actions that you did before you even got hired. And there are maybe those that they're very personal. They don't allow those types of things to be known by them, except for a very small group of people. And like I said, God has used me in so many different ways. It's like we discussed before that we started the podcast. It would be spitting into the face of a God that has blessed me with things by not sharing those things, because my purpose is to share those things.
Yeah.
That's part of it. Because it's using adversity to be able to show how you can overcome adversity. And it's from different walks of life, and that's what's important. That's why I asked you, why is yours? And so it has nothing to do with better than or worse than or anything like that. It's just different circumstances, like fires. Every fire is different, has its unique set of circumstances, And it's the same with firemen. And it's important to know that, you don't have to be this altruistic, my faith is strong, in the sense that I do believe in God, that I do pray, that I do meditate for his, direction for me in my life. But I'm not your run of the mill. I'm not going to be a pastor anytime soon. I don't have that temperament for that. I speak from my faith to people that I shared one time at a conference, and a pastor was in there, and he come up to me. He says, "So you profess to be a man of God?" I looked at him. I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Well, I'm a pastor." I said, "Oh, congratulations. Nice to meet you. My name's Rick," and whatever. He introduced me. He says, "For a man of God, you sure curse a lot." And I've heard this before from multiple people, and it's true. It's true. It's not a thing that's a badge that you should wear of honor. It's something that just comes out sometimes, and it's just bad behavior. It's bad learning. And I told him, I said, "Yes." I said, "That's true." I said, "Yet the Lord continues to use me. That's baffling, isn't it?" And he started laughing. He didn't want to leave. He's like, "That's a good one," But it's the truth. Don't be ashamed of who you are, man. You just be who you are, because you're going to help the people that need to be helped. You're going to help the people that God has placed before you for that reason. And if you miss that lesson, you miss being true to yourself, and, to thine own self be true, man. I mean, that's a big deal. But, for me, who do I serve? Who's my master? Is fear my master? Because fear's not a good master. It's a good motivator and ain't a good master. Mine is a God. That's my master. I'm not, I like money like the next person, but it ain't going to rule my life. Fear is necessary, but it ain't going to rule my life. I already know what it's like. I still to this day go into restaurants and sit with my back against the wall and look for the nearest exits and try to figure out, okay, if this happens, this is what we're going to do. Man, I don't know if it just comes with the years of being on the job and it's a side effect, or if we were designed like that to make us good at the job.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't question it anymore, but I don't let it rule my life.
Yeah.
If it starts to become a problem, I got to take a deep breath and I think about it and go, "God, my life's in your hands, man. I'm not going to do this, Well, I'm not going to be a retard, and ignore, things that I know that I should be careful with. I don't, I live in South Florida. I carry concealed almost everywhere I go. I'm not, listen, it's a violent place, man. This is a perversion of reality in South Florida. This is not your normal type of environment, and I'm not fooled by that. You protect yourself, but I don't allow that to go to a level where it dominates me. And I think that's the importance. I don't think that your path, where you come from and your circumstances is as important as how you utilize them to impact your life. Because me and you, we're the same. Yeah. We're the same. We're, just how we got here is just a little different. Plus you're younger, and we got the same kind of haircut. So that's another good thing going.
Yeah. So gotta get it back to, your question, because it's a good question. I don't necessarily just enjoy talking about myself, but I love this conversation, and I feel like it's just going to enhance the conversation if I add to it. But so
I agree.
like I said, this is something that my wife and I discussed. And because, you know, it was after I met her, and that's when I first drank something. And so anyway, I think it's like you said, it's the upbringing, it's the details that we grew up in. You know, I never ever remember seeing any kind of wine bottle, beer can, bottle, anything in our house. Not in the fridge, never. I never saw my parents drink and anything. I grew up a very church centered household and family, and it was a, you know, a pretty strict type religious upbringing, and I don't remember seeing any of my family drinking any, like extended family. I was never around it. And so I think at the base of that, it just grew in my head that that was bad. There was no gray. It was either you're good because you don't do it, or you're bad because you are. That's just what I knew. And the conversation that my wife and I had, how it's probably been 5 years ago or so, was, you know, to me, even after I became a parent, and I wrote what I was writing down earlier that I told you I was writing notes. It just kind of came to me as I feel like I have a inner drive to be a an example, just a something that pushes me to be that example. And so that kind of bleeds into this, because as a parent, you know, until I met her and until I kind of started learning other ways, to me, that's how I didn't want that around them, so that they didn't see it. They didn't, you know, they weren't, you know, affected by that. But now that I have changed my kind of perception of it, perspective, I want them to be able to see, hey, dad drank a beer tonight. Mom and dad drunk, you know, a couple glasses of wine, and they're fine. You know, they're not bad people. They do it, they do it responsibly. They do it in a way that isn't bad in any way. It's just it's okay because they know how to do it right. And I don't know if that makes any sense to you at all, but
Oh yeah,
I
it
think
does.
that's
Keep going.
kind of the base of it. And it's funny that, you know, your previous conversation about the cussing and the pasture. That's another thing with me. I'm just not a cusser. And if you sit here and ask me why, I would probably say the same thing. I have some type of weird, and I would almost even say it's ego driven at this point. I'm 43 years old. I feel like, well, I haven't been a cusser to this point. I think I can make it the rest of my life without doing it. You know what I mean? I don't, I just want to be that example. But am I offended by it? Absolutely not. I think it's funny. I almost, I almost wish sometimes that I was a cusser, because, you know, the funniest people nowadays are the people that use that in humor. And it's like, I don't know. It's just a weird mix of things that I'm spouting out here. But it's like almost the first time I've even said anything about it. So I'm sure it's coming out very, very unorthodox. But do you kind of understand kind of
I get you,
that
man.
mindset?
Yeah. The there is a message that you're giving that may not be to the forefront of what your words are saying, but we said it before, to thine own self be true. Okay, so yeah, maybe that looks cool sometimes, but what, to be able to express yourself that way, but you're here to offer the other side, right? So how many times have you heard about these sports athletes? Oh, they're role models. They're good role models. Isn't that everybody is a role model?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody is a role model. But the important part that you're talking about is you're thinking about your family and how best to be a role model for them. And I think that's a great goal. If I've gone 40 some years without using curse words, I think I go another 40 something without doing it. Is it necessary for me to be able to articulate my point? No. You know, why don't I do it that way? I just never did it that way.
Yeah.
It was never, I always did it that way. And I did it in the beginning for shock value.
Yeah.
Now that repetition has been so ingrained and the neural pathway has been so developed that it's a default that just pops up every once in a while. Not one that I'm proud of, because it's put me in position to use words like that at times where what it is that I'm trying to convey is very profound and meaningful. And then it's interrupted by a curse word. And people lose the focus and they focus on, oh God, that would have been so powerful had he not used it. And I'm lost. They've lost. I've lost that, you know, and there's value to that. There's a lot of credibility that goes to that. And so I've had to tone it down a lot. And the reason that I've toned it down is because if I want people to take my message, which is about God and about, you know, performance and things like that, then I have to be able to express it in such a way that it doesn't take away from that. And so, and it's the same with my children. So yeah, they're cute when they say that and they're a kid and they use a curse word. Oh, that's so cute because it's so unusual, right?
Mm-hmm.
But those kids end up becoming adults and using the same things, and they get carte blanche and think it's okay and whatnot. And eventually it ends up biting them too. I'm not okay with that. Yeah. I'm not okay with that, because my job as a role model for my family or for the fire service or whatever is to be, you know, Bill Guston used a word that that really made me, you know, think about it. He said, "You're an ambassador for the fire service," and I was like, "Damn, that's good." You know, that one word, right? Because words are powerful. Words are important. That one word gave me a perspective that I was like, how good of an ambassador am I really? And how can I make it better? And while words don't make the man, you're gonna lose an audience. You're gonna lose the power of your you know, your sub. Billy Graham never used curse words, you know, unless he was talking about damnation and stuff like that. Billy Graham, probably one of the most influential men, you know, this country has seen, you know, in many ways, and even people that aren't familiar with his teachings and the way that he did things, incredible man. I look at him as a role model, where the younger me laughed about that. Yeah. I'll be in hell with all my friends, you know, idiot. Who used to play that song, you know, that one verse where I hope I die before I get old. Well, old was 30 years old, you know, at the time when I was listening to that. I'm here, here I am 62. Never thought I'd live to be that old, you know, or have the life that I have.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think there's a great deal of value, like we said before. I think if you take you and I and we combine a message, we stand twice the chance of reaching twice the size of an audience, because both of our paths that have taken us here. And so when you use a broader array, you stand a chance of reaching more people, because it's the message that's important, not the messenger. And we know that, but the messenger is important to be able to get that message out. So how you do it is very powerful, and that'll segue into what you were talking about. You know, you a jerk at home, you a jerk at the firehouse. There's no avoiding it. Yeah. So how do you take performance training and impact the quality of your life at home? Or how do you take the person you are at home and impact the quality of the fire service? It cross-pollinates. It doesn't, one is not mutually exclusive of the other. They are one and the same.
Yeah. And that's, you know, what you're talking about right there, that makes it even more of a priority that we should take of telling our stories and helping others, because, you know, like I've already said, you know, we've experienced different things. You know, you have been on the side of addiction, as far as, you know, having to overcome it, having to fight through that, and be sober for 1 year, for 2 years, for 10 years, for 34 years. That's amazing. I have been on the other end of that. You know, I have been the person that has dealt with everything that the addict has brought to me. I didn't choose any of that. I choose to stay with them. That was my choice. And I could very easily say, yeah, that was a dumb choice. I shouldn't have done that. But there are 4 kids in my life right now that
That's right.
I'm pretty sure I would not be okay with being without. So whatever, I'm happy to have gone through all that. But just if that's the only thing out of it, then that's great. But again, the life I have lived, the lessons I have learned, the fights that I have had to fight through on the opposite end of what you have had to fight through. There are people out there on both ends of that needing our stories. There are people that needing to hear your story of fighting for surviving addiction, for making it 30 plus years. Just as many as there are people needing to hear, you know, living with an addict, living with abuse, and whatever else that's brought to it, fighting through that, just needing to know that they aren't alone. And that right there, it's and that is a huge weight. And if you are not using your story to help others, you're probably somebody that's feeling like you can't breathe, because that weight is going to smash you if you don't get it off your chest and off your back.
I think that the people that don't stories stories have always been very, very powerful tools to transmit a message. And it goes back to ancient Sparta, the ancient Greeks. It goes back 850 BC. It probably even goes further back. It's just I don't have the search engine to be able to see how far back it goes. Um, Men or women, it doesn't matter. I just speak from a man's perspective because I am a man. And so, men for years, the ancient tradition of sharing your weaknesses and your bouts that you go through, the things that haunt you and stuff, goes way, way back, of men telling another man that, and how they help them to come overcome that. This isn't something that's unique to the Catholic Church or to organized religion. I'm a Christian, but I read the Bible. I don't necessarily. I'm not affiliated with any religion. Um, I understand the words that are written in the Bible. I understand the context. Nobody needs to explain that to me. And if I struggle with one area of it, I have men that I know that I can go to that can explain that to me. So when you say that, when it said that the sun shines on the just and the unjust as the rain falls on the just and the unjust, what that means is that you're going to have struggles, you're going to have trials, you're going to have tribulations, no matter how righteous you are or unrighteous you are, no matter how good you are or how evil you are, it's going to happen. It is part of the human condition. That's what we're on this planet to overcome and to learn from. The storytelling is important. And whether you succumb to the weight of keeping that story and it dies with you, what's important that you understand is that story, your personal story, has a way of impacting people, and you can help people with that story, no matter how good or how bad it is. Um, it's something that's been known for a long, long time, and for some reason, it hasn't translated into our society very well. I mean, some people get picked up on it and some people don't, but the idea that making yourself vulnerable is a way of gaining strength is a foreign concept, to many alpha personalities, because we want to look like strong and in charge all the time. We're not. We're not. When I tell you that my divorce was the last straw, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. You think about that. That's a lot of straws. Camels are very, very strong. So that saying alone should require you to look at it and go, the last straw, that one little grain of sand, that one last thing that tilted that scale so far that it broke the back of an animal of burden that carries weight, you know? That's impactful when you understand how that is put together. And so when that happened, what do you do with that? What, do you fall into despair because you've never trusted somebody else with your vulnerabilities? Or do you learn that it's in trusting others with your vulnerabilities that you become stronger? And not only stronger, you become a better example, role model, so to speak. Um, I think that your life that you shared about, I think that makes you a better fireman because you don't quit. You understand that, I have to do this. I have to go through this. Um, I think it's a very good example to be able to say that, yeah, I stayed with somebody that I could have easily turned and run from, and you didn't. Yeah, the story is impactful, and it's been such an ancient tradition because when you have the opportunity to share that with people, and you understand that making yourself vulnerable is how you gather strength, and it also helps empower other people to learn that it's not making yourself vulnerable is not what. I lost you again. This thing's still recording, so I'm gonna keep going. So when you lose when you lose the ability to think that making yourself vulnerable is a bad thing rather than a good thing, there's a problem there, because the value is for your children in teaching them. The value is walking with another person through life who has their struggles, and you can show up. Um, when people say you're my rock, it's not like a, oh, I don't know what I would do without you. No, it means that somebody has gone through something with you, and a rock is a sign of stability, of strength, because that stability offers strength. And so you brought that to your relationship. Was it hard? Yeah, but you didn't bail out, making a tough hallway where you're pushed down to the floor, and maybe the wind is going to drive you back into another room, and having another option for being able to attack the fire. That mindset that you've shown in your personal life translates completely to the fire service. You just have to understand how that works. Stories are a very important vehicle to be able to transfer that knowledge and that information. You're going to be the officer of a company. You're going to have men or women that are going to struggle underneath you in their personal lives or on the job. You're the best bartender in the world, man. You're not just going to listen to their problems. You're going to help them find solutions. That's what we do. We show up, we make miracles happen, brother. We take chaos and make order out of it. How that's done on a personal level differs somewhat from how we do it on a fire scene. But on a fire scene, we have a plan. So why would we not have a plan in place for personal life? And what does that plan look like? Well, it takes on a lot of different characteristics. Those characteristics can vary from.
You brought something up there that.
Go ahead, bro.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were
No,
done.
it's all right. We got some lag time now with the internet connection.
I know.
Go ahead with what you were saying. That's all right.
Strength. You brought up strength, and I think that is a very interesting combination of words between strength and humility, and I think they're so vital to us making it through those situations, those bad times, those struggles, those fights. You got to have a combination of both. You got to have humility so that you can grow, so that you can learn. But that strength, that is another vital piece of that puzzle. You've got to have the strength to do it. And so it's almost like those are two ends of the spectrum. You think about strength, you're thinking about, the pictures of Samson and all that. You think about humility, you think about somebody that's meek and, kind of lowering themselves. But that is such a powerful mix. It's very important.
What kept me away from the Bible and believing in God and stuff is because I would read that stuff and I thought it was kind of effeminate, little fairies running around. Oh, turn the other cheek, love everyone and be kind to your enemies. It's like heaping coals of fire on their head and stuff. I thought to myself, no, you punch them right in the damn throat, knock them down, put your foot on their throat, and don't let up until they stop moving. That's how you handle your enemies. What I didn't understand was that the apostles were some of the biggest, toughest men. These were the equivalent of longshoremen. These guys would fish and pull nets. They weren't little men. These are big, old, tough guys, broad shoulders, broad backs, strong arms, pulling nets up, had heart. They did a lot of stuff that was uncharacteristic and in my mind associated with being, feminine or, a beta personality. Well, I couldn't have been further from the truth, and when you read about Abraham, that's a bad man. I looked at these guys and Paul and these guys, and he murdered Christians. What he did,
yeah.
And his heart was turned, and he in turn, it had nothing to do with his physical strength. It had to do with his spiritual weaknesses, and once he developed those, his life changed. He's still the same tough guy, still capable of doing all that, but he endured greatly for what he believed in, which is what we do.
Yeah.
We endure greatly for what we believe in. It ain't easy to sit in a room and put a fire out or work on a tough door in heat conditions or a tough roof when the engine company's taking a beating below you, or understanding when you're the engine company taking the beating that the truck is, they got a challenge ahead of them because these guys are usually Johnny on the spot with us. There's something's going on. And that is a clue that maybe it's a double roof. Well, we don't think about those kind of things when we face personal challenges. We think of them as like I failed or this and that. We don't know that this is part of a refinement process. This is to develop the man or the woman in their life, and all of it's learning, man. All of it's learning. And if you keep thinking that you comparing yourself to other people, you're missing it. You're missing the lesson. And the lessons are valuable.
Yeah.
And the story is valuable because if you don't explain the reason that I was able to work in these neighborhoods that were so challenging and so difficult and how we could run overdoses and this and that, the junkies in my zone got tired of seeing me. They'd be like, I freaking Narcan their ass, and they come out of it and they go, oh God, not this guy. Cause I'm going to tell them, man, I thought you were clean. I thought you was going to meetings. Did you call your sponsor? You've been working your steps. Have you been doing all the stuff you're supposed to be? And they're like, damn, you ruined my high and now he's going to get in my head, but they knew me on a first name basis. We'd go shopping. I'd buy 2 sandwiches, I'd buy one for me and one for the guy that was hanging out in front of Publix because I know him, Those lessons are important. I understand what their struggles are like. So I give them what's called dignity that they deserve and some respect. I understand where they're at. When you've had battles with these kind of things, you can speak with the parents of somebody that's suffering. You can address that, and it brings a humanity to it. These are not things you're going to learn in the fire service. These are life skills. These are life skills. And they have a great value. And it's also in the way that you're going to take care of your people when you become in charge of a company. Because firemen are not, we're exposed to the same elements. It ain't like we're made of Teflon, bing, we're not going to become addicted, bing, we're not going to drink alcohol. We know that's a damn lie. Our divorce in the fire service is it's crazy. Just like our suicide rate, just like our addiction and alcoholism, And if we don't have those stories to learn how you overcame it, right? How you stayed and fought, tooth and nail through all the nastiness that addiction brings into a family. And you see the value of what that person is like when they come out on the other side even stronger. how that's going to benefit your children and how that's going to bond your relationship even closer. You know, you don't hear people talk about that, and you have to. You should be hearing about that.
Yeah. So, I mentioned earlier about the details and training, and kind of kept calling it that next level of training. I think what you're saying right there kind of brings to mind, the next level of leadership. When you can turn being a leader and helping people be better firefighters and drivers and future officers, when you can turn that into doing that, but also
Hey, real quick, are
helping
you
them to
still
be better
recording?
people. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I didn't see it on my side. I just thought I wasn't
Yeah.
sure. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
It's saying it is. I hope it is. No, you're fine.
Okay.
But when you can take that and turn it into helping that crew to be better people, as well as better firefighters, better humans, better leaders at home. And when you can do that as a leader, that is the next level of leadership right there. That is when it becomes a big deal as a leader.
Yeah, We Are Sparta is not that these guys fought all the time and they were extremely dedicated to their families, extremely loving men with their children and their wives. You know, We Are Sparta is far more than what you see with the guy throwing a spear and taking the ring off some dude's ear and whatnot. No, that's just Hollywood's version. We Are Sparta goes much, much deeper than that. They had virtues and character. That was their foundation. You didn't lie, you didn't cheat, you didn't steal. There was some serious foundation. There was a discipline to that is far beyond anything that our society brings.
Yeah.
That's why the stories are valuable.
No, and the stories are, I almost wish that I was a better storyteller, because you meet these people that I can just think of several at my department that you just enjoy hearing them talk, because they can turn a normal story that it's funny or it's good, and just turn it into something really entertaining. The good storytellers, the charismatic type people. And I've kind of always been a little bit jealous of that, because that really brings those lessons out. It helps to spread them. If you're more I don't know what the word is, more entertaining or more kind of getting your point out than just somebody that kind of tells the details and that's it. But that is something I've always kind of thought about.
So people can look at it as jealousy could be that motivator that says, you know what, I see how this man uses stories to be able to push forward his message. I like that vehicle. I'm going to get better at doing that.
Yeah.
It's no different than forcible entry or search or anything that you might suck at. You focus harder at the things that we're weak at to develop it into a strength.
Yeah.
At 40 something years old, I had been sober probably a little over a decade at that time. And part of the thing of going through a 12-step program is you're not ashamed to tell your story. Your story is your story, man. That's your qualifier. That's your pedigree. That's your resume. And it's the same way in the fire service. Your story, that's your resume. You're telling them, look, this is what happened to me. You have a very valuable story. You really do.
Yeah.
Those things. And as you get more and more comfortable with sharing intimate details in certain surroundings and under certain circumstances, you'll learn to make the association with what it is that you're trying to drive home. The story in itself is entertaining, and that's all it is entertainment, unless you can make the association with something. And then it becomes a lesson. So, stories are stories. The lessons, they're valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned earlier that the group that you're a part of is kind of steered towards the police, fire, military, first responders, that type field. This is something that I've kind of found interesting, and if I hopefully will get some of these military people on as well some point, we'll ask them. But it seems like the people that have really done well, the people that have come out of the military and made a name for themselves or done big things, they have had a mission. It's the people that seem to not really have a mission in life, or have, again, a purpose in life, are the people that struggle coming out of the military, or you can, across the board, fire service, police, whatever. Is that something that you can kind of maybe put a finger on, as well as being a big part of that, either success or struggle, is if they have that mission, if they have that purpose, or if they don't?
Yeah. So um, I'm careful how I word this. So uh, my purpose in life is to make sure that I use my platforms and my opportunities for good. As a younger man, I exploited the weaknesses in people and took advantage of people. That's what I did. That was part of the job. Um, and I spread, addiction is not, it's not joy. It's not good. It's fucking evil, period. Okay. So
Yeah.
when my purpose was to be used as an instrument of good, my purpose was to be of service to who? Well, to my God, and my God wants me to be of service to others. Okay. So it's a servant leadership. All right. What is my mission? My mission is my goal. What is my goal? To be as helpful in every direction that I have been pointed in as possible, whether it's in the fire service, whether it's in alcohol or substance abuse, or in the mental health field, whether it has to do with cancer, whether it has to do with fatherhood or being a husband, or just a friend, a member of my church, a member of my street, my block, my society in general, my city, my state, my county, my country. Um, there are multiple missions, um, and the mission is the goal. My purpose in life is never changes. The mission can often change. The direction can often change, but my purpose, you always stay true to your purpose, and the trick, for lack of a better word, is to find how the direction of your purpose has moved. And because none of these things, listen, PTSD, cancer, drug addiction, alcoholism, womanizing, violence, that's not the way I saw my life playing out. I didn't pick those. I mean, I picked them, but well, to a certain extent, some of them, but that's not how I didn't expect my life to be a series of Jerry Springer episodes. That's not the way I saw myself growing up. That's not how I saw my future. But I'll tell you what, man, Jerry Springer has done my life pretty well. I mean, my life where it is now and what I've had to go through, I understand it. And I have been blessed to be one of those people that has been able to grasp things such as my daughter being assaulted and that entire nightmare that we went through. There's a lot of things that led up to our divorce, and a lot of things that have led up to the marriage of my second wife, and a lot of things that my wife and I, my current wife and I, have gone through. And the one purpose has always been to move forward and work through our problems. Have there been some really close times where it's like, that's it, I'm throwing a grenade on this, we're done, Yeah, but the message has always stayed true, right? If you don't listen to your own story and mine out the lessons of it, you are doomed to repeat the same patterns over and over again. Some things have to change. How do they change? Well, you stop being such a baby that you think that your vulnerabilities scare you. You don't want to share them with somebody. It's embarrassing. Get over it, man. Life takes on a much bigger meaning when you do that. When people, I got a guy at work that one of the clinicians, they call him, one of the guys nicknamed him Dr. Fauci. you know, and because when he wears a mask, I don't know, somehow these guys think there's a resemblance, and it's not meant in a nice way, you know, and so I grabbed the guy and I told him, I said, you know about the nickname? He goes, yeah. I said, you know what I think you do? From now on, you wear a little piece of tape on there that says doctor. You don't have to include the name Fauci. So when they say Dr. Fauci, say, no, excuse me. You can just call me doctor. He's not a doctor, but I said, play into it. It's like the firehouse, right? When you're doing the dishes and you're not complaining and you actually first one up and you start doing the dishes and stuff, guess what, rookie? You're going to find other men helping you because they know you got the lesson. They know you understand. They know you're one of them. When you embrace the harassments to a certain extent, when you embrace it, you know, guys will go, you know, this guy's all right, man. He rolls with it. You know, he's cool. And they actually listen to what you got to say, right? But being able to be that guy that's learned how to incorporate and how to do that and then help others do the same thing, now you become a change agent. Now your purpose, your direction, your mission, all of those things have come to fruition. You know, you got nothing to be scared of, bro. You got nothing to be scared. Think about this. If somebody else would have done to you the things that you think about yourself, you'd have to kill them, man. You'd have to kill them. If somebody else would have done to you the things that you've thought or done to yourself on your own volition, you'd have to kill them. Yep. But we do it to ourselves, you know? So I think that those messages resonate. I think they're important, you know, throughout the fire service, throughout your personal life, because, you know, the fire service doesn't define who you are. You ain't a fireman. You're not a fireman. That's just your job. It's your career, whatever, however you want to paint that. Okay. There will come a time, there will come a day where you will no longer be that man. You will be slow. You will be old. You will be brittle. You will not be able to do that job anymore. Now what? You've tied your whole life up into this is who I am, and now you're not that anymore. What then? Boom. That's what's next. Don't fall for that. This is it's just a transitional phase. We go through multiple transitional phases throughout our life. And that's part of life, man. You know, sometimes it means you're not with the person you started off with and you change partners. Sometimes you're in control of that. Sometimes you're not in control of that. You know, which brings up an interesting concept, which is control. You know, most of the guys that are in the rehab that I work with, they do really, really well on the job because the job is very structured. When they come off and their days off and there ain't no structure, whoo, things have a tendency of going real sideways real quick. I've earned the right to be able to drink and to do this and to do that. I've earned the right to be a jerk. You know, I come home, I got to hear my wife talk about how the kids have been and this and that. And all I want to say is, do you have any idea what it was like my shift when I had to pull these kids out of this fire and their skin's coming off on my gloves? Do you know what that smells like? Do you know how long I've got to live with that smell in my nostrils till eventually it goes away? That's my old thinking. But that's not what you bring home. You're supposed to bring home tolerance and patience and love. But when you can't control or have no idea of how to be able to capture that and prepare for that storm when you come home, the foundation that's going to be revealed is going to be an embarrassment. Because you should prepare for that before you come home. This is what it looks like. To use the same example, you've had a really horrific shift and you come home and you tell the wife, I need some time. Failure. You know what? When you're doing okay and you and her can talk and you're both in the same place emotionally and mentally, that's when you bring it up. Honey, there's going to be a time where you're going to have a really tough time with all four of these kids. And I'm going to come home and I am going to have faced some really horrific stuff. And I want us to prepare now for that storm. I'm going to need some time because I will not have slept. And because I will not have slept, I can't process my emotions properly. And as a result, my reaction is going to be overreactive as opposed to being somebody that can relate and be compassionate with you. Okay. So I just need some time to reset. And I promise you, I will give you a break from these four little kids. but I have to reset first. We have to work as a team. And there's going to be times where I'm going to be refreshed and I'm going to come home and you're going to be the one that's been under the storm, and I'm going to have to be able to be prepared mentally and make that shift and say, okay, I'm going to take the kids and give you a break. And it may stretch you a little bit further, but she's already been stretched as far as she can go, and remember, she got the support of a company to help her with these kids, or your husband, whoever, whatever the case may be. It might be a woman in the fire service goes home to her husband who's a stay-at-home dad, right? So they don't have the support of a company. They don't have people to share the burden with them, and CIS, or peer support, or EAP, or any of that crap. That they don't have that. They don't have that. You got to understand that going into it, so that this is the discussion that takes place before the storm, so that when the storm comes, all she got to do is take one look at you and go to sleep, go to the gym first, come home, take a shower, take a nap, wake up. We'll all rejoin and whatever back, then, I'm going to take the kids to the to the park, and we're going to be okay, but that's the plan. I mean, we have them at work, but these men that I deal with don't have this plan. They don't have this structure. It's never occurred to them to do that. And quite frankly, it never occurred to me either. I had to be taught the same things, and how to implement that. And it ain't a one and done. It ain't a YouTube video, this is something you work at, and you're going to suck at it in the beginning, just like being a fireman, until you do enough reps that you get good at it,
Yeah, that's just, it leads back to, something you said earlier about the storm isn't the time to build that foundation. It's before. And that's, there's so many different areas you can use that in life and on the job, everywhere. And that is a big one. Our family is and should be the most important thing of our life. If we lose our job tomorrow, we still need to have that family. That family is going to be there way after we are firefighters. Like you said, if you put everything into being a firefighter, it's setting you up to be in a bad place. That family has got to be a priority. And
our
legacy,
our legacy should be how well we prepared our children for when we're gone. Most of us like, oh, well, I've left them a small fortune, house, I've set them up, I gave them an education. Great. Those are responsibilities. Teach them how to show up for their life. Teach them how to avoid the pitfalls that you've stepped into. And it's going to take time. It's going to take time, because you know what? I prepared my kids as best as possible, and now they're going to step on those landmines, and I'm going to be here to help them navigate their water through that. And that's valuable. That's valuable, because they we don't own these kids. We just we get to mold them, and then at some point they're going to fly on their own, and that's where the lessons are going to come into fruition, and they're going to that's when things, that's when they come together. That's when the glue starts to adhere and the lessons start to take place. That's important, man. You got the perspective of understanding how big of a picture that is going to take you in a good direction to help you develop these foundations. It's like Colin Powell said, good leaders learn to see around the corner. Learn to see around the corner of your relationship. Learn what those storms look like. Prepare the foundations ahead of time, so when they come and they're revealed, you already have a plan in place. We do that in the fire service. Make sure you do that for your family, and it's for every occurrence, I mean, Jeremy, man, you've been exposed to some things. You've had the distinct, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not pleasure, the opportunity to have been exposed to some things that are not so good, but it has revealed things about life and the preparation for certain things that most people get caught flat-footed with. A smack in the face is never a good thing to experience, but to prepare for it again is always, a good thing.
It's some, just kind of trying to wrap it up here to kind of put a bow on things. Something you said a little bit ago was, the directions have changed with you, the purpose hasn't. And that's that brought a thought to me is my personal kind of journey here the past year. And I've said it several times on here, but I am not the personality of person to be sitting here hosting a podcast. It's just not me. But being a person that puts a lot into faith, that faith is very important to me. This is something that I was pushed to do. There's no other way I can explain it. I was pushed to do this. There was something in me that told me this is something you need to try, even though it doesn't feel comfortable. This is something you need to try. And so that is why I'm sitting here with you today. And I just wanted to kind of point out, and I try to do this pretty often, that if you're out there listening and you are feeling that, if you're feeling a push towards something, if there's something in you saying, you really need to do this, you really need to share your story, you really need to write that book or that article, you have to do it. Just find that strength and do it, because you have no idea the amount of help you can give if you do that. And that, something is interesting, and I'll let you kind of wrap it up and then say whatever you want to say as well. But kind of a thought that came to me a few weeks ago is a dandelion. You know what a dandelion is, right? The thing that the kids blow and all the seeds go everywhere. I feel like that dandelion is our story, is our, our lessons. Everything that we have is that. And we can sit there and hold that dandelion and it doesn't do anything. But if we blow it, if we share that message, and you just never know where those seeds are going to go. You don't, when you add a social media platform that goes literally across the world, there you have no idea the impact that you can have. And so it is so important to share that with as many people that I can, to step up, to get out of your comfort zone, to be the person that you were put here to be, and to do the things you were put here to do. And so I'll let you take over and close it out however you want to do it. Say anything else that you're wanting to say, but that's just a thought of mine.
So I like what you were talking about the podcast thing. And it's not being in the position of the podcast, it's the message of the podcast. That's the important thing. The message is, and it's the same way with the way that you walk through your life. You use the dandelion. I use a rock in a puddle or a rock in a lake. It makes its impact, and then the effects of it are felt all the way across the lake. You may not be able to see it, but those effects continue even under the surface of the water. And that can be used for good or it can be used for bad. I have been, for the last 6 months, putting together a podcast to start interviewing other men that have had similar struggles to me, and then doing performance segments also, and implementing that. And so I got off Facebook. It was actually a year ago. I got off Facebook because I was completely shocked by the number of, I couldn't accept more friends, and I had all these followers. I'm like, what? Do you people have any idea what kind of a man I am? I wouldn't be following me, but it's the message. And so it took a period of time for that to ferment. And I realized, I was speaking to a guy who's an FBI agent, and he does podcasts, and he's also very similar struggles to us. And he said, Rick, what you do is you take, because it's on deactivate, and he says you develop the podcast, you change from your name to the podcast name and whatever. And so when you drop episodes once a week or something, you have that reach, you have that foundation. He says, because it takes a while to develop it. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. He says, well, why are these people drawn to you in the first place? And I was like, okay, good point. I get it. It's the message. And and since then, there's been a refinement process before we've even been able to put one podcast out. And I've just made some more changes to it. So it's like an always evolving thing. And it's not me. So we want to
Yeah.
put it into two formats. One is an MP4 where you can actually see the webcast, and the other one is an MP3 where you can just hear it. And we have
Yeah.
some different aspects to it. So it's going to be, instead of a long one, it's going to be short segments. So people can hear it while they're driving, 20, 30-minute segment. There might be some that are a little bit longer. Some will be about life challenges. Some will be about substance abuse. Some are about mental health. Some will be about performance. We'll be discussing our book and how to implement certain things. So we'll show video clips of how to utilize certain parts of the book and implement it. We'll show through example, because we want that message to get out there further. Because what you're doing is vitally important, but more importantly, it's going to take a small army of people like us to change the culture and to get the message out there. And because somewhere even within our country, there are people that have no idea what it is we're talking about. And those are the people that we want to affect. There's a saying that, long is the road, short is the life. And the more people that we can incorporate in this is how we make an impact on people in general, not just our culture, our society, the fire service and whatnot, but on our families, on the futures of people, and how we can impact the way that they show up for their life, which is so important. Ain't about Ric Jorge. Ain't got nothing to do with Ric Jorge. Ric Jorge is dead a long, long time ago. It is the message that follows that's important. And when I'm dead and gone, there'll be somebody else doing this. When Joe Rogan is gone, somebody else will be doing what Joe Rogan is doing. But to have had a hand in that it's just an honor. What an honor to have been allowed to be a part of something like that. That's the main thing. So with that, listen, thank you very much for having me on here, Jeremy. It's been wonderful. I really enjoyed it. And you need anything, reach out to me, man. You got my number, you got my contact info. I'm not hard to find.
Appreciate that. Before you go, you got anything else any classes, any plugs that you want to put out there? Anything coming up?
Yeah, we're doing a thing in Orlando. It's a command and control, and we're combining the incident command and overwhelming them so that they can see and how to implement these same tools from an incident command position. Like when things start to go south, you get a mayday, you got units that are being held up, all kinds of other things. And so we've actually gotten a good group of guys with Jerry Tracy, Dave McGrail, Walt Lewis has been instrumental in putting this all together. Scott Chappelle, my man from Ohio. Oh God, he's going to kill me. Jerry Krause, I believe it's Jerry Krause, and him and Walt have been the two that have been putting this together. Those guys, they're just like, I'm sorry, God, I can't believe I called him Jerry. It's Jerry Tracy. It's Robert Krause. Robert Krause out of Ohio. I apologize, Bob. Those two guys have been instrumental in putting that together. And then the next class that we've got, because Florida and Georgia seem to be the only two people that are putting hands-on training together, we'll be doing some classes locally here that'll be opened up to anybody. But the next one would be the Atlanta Fire Conference, MAFC, the Metro Atlanta Firefighter Conference. We'll be doing our 24-hour class there. It runs 24 hours straight. We'll be getting a lot of the techniques. We'll have some great instructors from your state as well. Will be there. We got a couple of them that are very good. Alejandro Rangel and Haskins, Eric Haskins, and there's another guy from your area also. But they're coming from all over. They'll be coming from Seattle. They'll be coming from everywhere. And we've got some top-notch instructors, great guys, salt of the earth, be able to help you with whatever you need help with. I'm really proud of our cadre in that aspect. Very humble, very smart, very intelligent, high energy guys. Very, very good, very understanding. They're very intuitive. They can recognize when the problems are coming up. It's really good. But that's about the extent of the classes. This whole virus thing has kind of put a kibosh on a lot of things. But you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on LinkedIn. Tactical Resiliency Training is our page on Facebook. You can find my emails and stuff and my phone number and stuff through that. I'm not hard to find. You've got the contact info. Feel free to go ahead and share it with whoever, whenever. So yeah, that's about it, man.
All right. Sounds good. Again, I appreciate you devoting so much of your time today to me and to us, everybody listening. And thank you so much for sharing your story and everything else that you're doing for the fire service. So very much
My
appreciate
honor,
it.
my pleasure.
All right.
Thank you for having me,
So
brother.
you're welcome. So until next time, thank you for spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next episode. Until then, stay humble and do work. Thank you.